Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live on this beautiful Monday from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Man, I got to tell you, I'm still in the stage where I'm okay without having football on Sundays for right now. I think there's 26 more Sundays to go until we have football. But there is a part of me that yesterday was trying to find something to watch on TV. That yesterday was like, okay, like, what's on? I ended up falling asleep watching an Atlanta Braves spring training game. Just awful. Now, baseball will come back, and then we'll have games on Sunday. And, first we'll have the basketball tournament. We'll have the NCAA tournament after the selection Sunday. We'll have Sundays for 2 straight Sundays, which will be good. But I'm starting to get to that point. But I'm in a good mood today. And I'm going to tell you why I am in a good mood. Because I thought this was a fabulous 2025 scouting combine. NFL, congratulations. I thought it was a great scouting combine, and I thought it was a great scouting combine for the Tennessee Titans for one reason. And would you like to know what that one reason is? Because it feels like everybody and their grandma thinks the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward. And I love it. The Giants are desperate. The Jets are desperate. The Raiders are desperate. The Browns sit behind you. They're desperate. And as many of you know, I do not view, from what I've seen, and I've watched the tape, I do not see Cam Ward as a franchise quarterback. I do not believe that Cam Ward is worthy of a number 1 pick. And while I know not all drafts are created equal, when you have that mantle of number 1 pick, that does mean something. So I see the talent when it comes to Cam Ward. And I do think Cam Ward is a first-round quarterback, especially when I talk talent, the off-platform throws that Ward can make fluidly. Now, I'm not sure I see the consistency or the elite traits that make me believe that if Cam Ward becomes the best he can be, that the Titans would consistently be competitive with the rest of the AFC with Cam Ward as their quarterback. Not ruling it out, just saying I'm not sure that I see it. So then you have to ask yourself, why am I so encouraged that everybody seems to think as of today that the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward? Going into the combine, Daniel Jeremiah, the lead draft analyst at NFL Network, and Mel Kiper Jr., the lead draft analyst at ESPN, both had Abdul Carter going first overall in their mock drafts because they were hearing Tennessee's not interested in going quarterback. So now everybody has left the combine hearing, thinking, believing that Tennessee is going quarterback with that pick. And I love it. Because if you're the Browns, if you're the Giants, if you're the Raiders, if you're the Jets, this means you better come willing to pay if you want Cam Ward. And if I ran this team, and I talk about this all the time, I remember saying this last year that I would have fired Mike Vrabel at the end of the year, but leading up to it, you all would have thought there's no way I'd fire Mike Vrabel. Why? Because I'd want to try to drum up some trade interest. I said last year that I would have fired Ran Carthon, but I wouldn't have done it in the middle of the season. You wouldn't have heard me come out and tell the fans, it'll be okay. No. So again, when it comes to me, just because I tell you on a daily basis and my job as a talk show host doesn't mean that if I ran the team that I would do things the same way, other than the ultimate end goals would be the same. And for me, I want to drum up as much trade interest as possible. And the best way to do that is for everybody. And I am not just talking the teams, but the teams are the most important. But for everybody, the analysts on ESPN, the fans on Twitter, the guys on local talk radio, on WFAN in New York, where both the Giants and the Jets need a quarterback. I would want everyone to think there's a one guy out there and I'm taking him. So if you want him, you got to come get him. And if you're coming to get him, you got to pay the price. Again, I don't love Cam Ward. And I'm sure he did great in the interviews, but guess what? He didn't throw a single pass this weekend. So this idea that now everybody's got that, oh, Cam Ward is the man and Tennessee's taking him. There's no way that that could be real. There's no way that going into the combine, people would be saying, yeah, Tennessee's not going quarterback. Cam Ward not throw one pass and everybody leave the combine and say, Tennessee's going quarterback and they're going with Cam Ward. Here's what happens. The draft gurus will believe what anybody tells them because deep down inside, I think to a certain extent, they're play acting. Like Mel Kiper Jr. knows he's not Bill Polian. So when someone high up and connected with a team tells him something about loving a guy or, oh man, we really, when we watch this Cam Ward, we see something special, they run to TV and start talking about it because they know they don't have the requisite training and credentials to really be able to give these true, honest, bona fide opinions. They can be swayed by an NFL executive telling them, hey, here's what I think. Hell, that happened to me last year. I never claimed, by the way, to be a draft guru, or I never claimed to be somebody that can watch somebody's butt in a combine drill and tell you what position and what time. Because I've worked with that. So I know what that level of expertise is like. But last year, Mark Dominic, the former general manager of the Buccaneers, said the Titans should go draft Brock Bowers. And I've always liked Brock Bowers. But I hear Mark Dominic say they better go draft Brock Bowers. And all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, what about Brock Bowers? That stuff works. And you get everybody talking about it. So when someone high up connected with the team tells these guys, yeah, you know, I hear Tennessee really loves so-and-so, they run right to TV for it because they don't know. Well, right now, everyone is buying that Cam Ward is QB1 in this draft class and that the Titans might just take him. You know, the Titans who need a quarterback. And the only thing that belief does is it raises the price. Again, years ago, before the 2023 draft, 2 years ago, I kept seeing the Colts want Will Levis. Every ESPN reporter was reporting it. The Colts want Will Levis. Todd McShay said, I don't know what the Colts are going to do if Will Levis is not the pick there. And I knew it meant they wanted Anthony Richardson because I wanted Anthony Richardson. But if I was the Colts, the way I would play this is I tell everybody we want Levis when we really want the other guy. So right now I see everyone saying that the Titans need to draft Cam Ward. I see people saying that Tennessee will draft Cam Ward. And I see teams like the Giants, teams like the Raiders, teams like the Browns, teams like the stupid and stinky Jets, all begging for a quarterback. They're all now having discussions of, you know, is Aaron Rodgers really that bad of an idea? And I get so excited because I start to think to myself, oh my God, these teams might tell themselves they have to give up the world to get to number one and get a guy who, again, I think is a first-round talent. I just don't think he's an elite first-round talent in Cam Ward. Again, going into the combine, most people assumed Tennessee wanted Abdul Carter or they wanted to trade out. Now, most people are assuming Tennessee wants to take the quarterback. And the fact that this didn't start on the first day of the combine. It wasn't like Borgonzi got there and all of a sudden it was, did you see what Mike Borgonzi said about Cam Ward? It wasn't that. That would be too obvious. Like the Giants telling their ESPN.com beat writer that they like Shedeur Sanders, and I looked at that and said they like Cam Ward. But as soon as Matthew Stafford elected to go back to L.A., and both New York teams needed a quarterback, the single best thing that could happen to the Titans, Cam Ward stock, and again, I don't know how this happened when neither of them threw a pass, But Cam Ward's stock went up. Shedeur Sanders' stock went down. There is one guy that fans believe is a potential first overall pick quarterback in this draft, and they all need him. This is the perfect place to be. What a great combine. Every day for the next month. And again, the NFL this week's a very big, it's kind of a deadish period. There won't be a ton of transactions other than teams cutting their own guys. But a week from today, we'll already be into free agency. So this is a big week. And every day for the next week, whether it's at New York radio, whether it is ESPN, NFL Network, Fox, whatever, they're all going to be talking about what the Jets and Giants have to do. They're all going to be talking about how good is Cam Ward. They're all going to be talking about how if you really want this quarterback, you're going to have to work on Tennessee. And I couldn't be happier. Again, a week ago we thought, well, they might be able to trade out of the pick, but it's probably not going to be that much of a haul because these quarterbacks aren't that good. And now everybody's like, nope, we need this Cam Ward. And that's exactly where I want this discussion to be. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number here on the program. That's 615-737-1025 if you want to get a thought in. Again, I am so excited about what I've seen out of the combine. So I am doing a lot of assuming when it comes to the Tennessee Titans and this number one pick and Cam Ward. And I do want to address the assumption because as this show I love on Amazon Prime, Reacher is called, as they say on that show, in an investigation, assumptions kill. So I do want to address the assumption here. We'll do that next. I'm going to company what about the game.
first overall pick. We haven't seen Abdul Carter. We did not see Genty. We are not seeing Cam Ward or Shedeur throw, and Travis Hunter didn't work out defensive backs. First overall pick, so much weighing on you guys holding the keys. Have you at least started having conversations where we're going to be narrowing down position or maybe even player at this point in the process?
It's still early, Peter, but it's a process. So we have this one touch point here. There'll be pro days that we go to, private workouts, 30-day visits. So we're going to take the entire process. This is an important pick here, number one pick in the draft. So we're not taking that lightly. So this is part of the process here. Kind of like phase one for us here.
In the quarterback position, we'll see. Obviously, we can go free agency, we can go trade. Those conversations, I'm sure, are being had as well.
We've had those discussions, but once again, we need to gather more information here over the next month. So we'll get to sit down. It's the first time really we've got to sit down with some of these guys that we haven't seen before. So, it was good to get them in the interview process here this week, even though some of them didn't work out. But we'll have time to visit with them here over the next month.
Micah Borgonzi, the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, saying, hey, so how important is this first pick? Well, Peter, we haven't done all the research we need to do in order to come up with the pick, but it's the number one pick. We're not taking that likely. Well, no crap. They said likely. We're not taking that lightly. No crap. So what about quarterback? Free agent, draft? What do you... Yeah, we're still trying to get information on the process. We're still trying to figure out the touch points, which is a big buzzword that NFL people like to use, the touch points. Try to figure out the touch points. So I said that in an investigation, assumptions kill. And I am doing a lot of assuming. I'm in a very good mood because I think that the Tennessee Titans are primed to trade the number one overall pick to a quarterback desperate team, most likely from New York, in order to get them to take Cam Ward, and then the Titans to, as you all know, I want to sign Sam Darnold, but then the Titans can turn around and build their team. But again, the assumption I am making is that the Titans are really more interested in drumming up a market for Cam Ward than they are in drafting Cam Ward. And maybe I'm wrong. I have to admit, again, I am assuming that because, again, I'm okay with Cam Ward, but I don't love Cam Ward, that I am assuming the Titans feel the same way I do. And the one thing I absolutely would love is for the Titans to be able to turn around and trade this pick for a bunch of extra picks and then really get some studs. The same way they did with Derrick Henry in 2016. Maybe the Titans do like Cam Ward. So here's the deal for everybody out there. Because, for instance, the distinguished gentleman who was the biggest Shedeur Sanders fan for like the last 3 months, I think has now become all in on Cam Ward. And I don't think he's the only one. But I do think that if you believe Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback, that you foresee a time 3 years from now, or maybe 2 years from now, or maybe this time next year, where you see Cam Ward in the same discussion with Josh Allen, then you take him. If I felt that way about Cam Ward, I would say they need to take Cam Ward. And I really think it's that simple. Again, I don't think the Titans are that interested in Cam Ward. But I can't assume something that I believe, but I don't know. I can't just think that I know it because I don't want them to draft Cam Ward. I want them to trade the picks. I want them to sign Sam Darnold. I can't just assume that's what they're thinking. And I have not been told that the Titans don't love Cam Ward. I have not been told that the Titans weren't just so totally wowed in the meetings with Cam Ward that they walked out and said, that's our guy. Brian Callahan told Albert Breer a story that they met with Joe Burrow at the Combine in 2020 and that the owner walked out and was like, that's our guy. The end. Maybe that's what happened with Cam Ward. I doubt it, but maybe that's what happened with Cam Ward. But if you love Cam Ward, and if the Titans love Cam Ward, and the Titans did talk a lot early in the week when it came to the media availabilities, they talked early in the week about trades. And everybody kept talking about the Titans wanting to trade. And the Titans, well, they'll have to be blown away if they want to move off of Cam Ward as kind of the new discussion point now. If you love a quarterback, you take him. You could not blow Chicago away last year in order to get the number 1 pick because they were going to take Caleb Williams. You could not blow Washington away. New York called the Patriots to try to get to number 3 and offered a first-round draft choice in this year's draft in order to be able to move up and get Drake May. And they all said no. So if Cam Ward was definitely the guy, then the Titans would be taking Cam Ward. They'd be going on about their business, and they wouldn't even be having this discussion. I can promise you, when Mike Brown, again, the Bengals are cheap, but when Mike Brown walked out of that suite at the Combine after they met with Joe Burrow, if in fact that story is true, I can guarantee you it wasn't any thought of, hey, let's see if somebody will offer us 2 first-rounders to move back for the Joe Burrow pick. I believe like a week before the draft, there was a rumor that Miami that was picking at 5 that had, if you remember the tank for Tua, that had gone all in trying to tank in order to get Tua at number 1, that they had called the Bengals and had asked, what would it take to get to number 1? And the Bengals said, no thanks. Well, it doesn't sound like the Titans are doing the, no thanks, don't call us, we're taking Cam Ward. It doesn't sound like they're doing that. But man, if you think he is that guy, then there is no discussion. You're taking him. I don't think he's that guy. So as far as I'm concerned, like, I am not interested whatsoever. Like, I am not interested in these discussions. I know people want to have them about, well, if you can get this pick, but if not, just take Ward. Either he's a franchise quarterback to you or he's not. Period. That's it. If he's a franchise quarterback, you're taking him. You're not really interested in trading unless Washington calls and wants to offer you Jaden Daniels. And guess what? They won't. But if he's not a franchise quarterback, then you're taking the calls because you're not that interested. But I am assuming as of right now, the reason they're taking the calls is because they don't believe that much in Cam Ward, but they want everybody else to. 615-737-1025. We will get to your phone, 615-737-1025 here on our program. Plus, one ESPN analyst who I haven't heard from in a while. And so I don't know if this is going to become what I call the ESPN take. The opinion that everybody at ESPN just starts having all at the same time. But it feels like this may be the case with the Titans and the number 1 pick. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Want to win tickets to a Preds game? Be listening to Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning for Preds Pick to Click. All you have to do is guess a Preds goal scorer, and if they put the puck in the back of the net, you win. So be listening tomorrow for the cue to call on Robbie and Rexroad. And this week's Nashville's Best Deal is from Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. See why Brewster's is a scoop above the rest, with the best ice cream shakes, sundaes, splits, blasts, and more. Visit theGameNashville.com/deals now and get half of a $50 gift card while supplies last.
If I'm the Tennessee Titans, I am not moving off the number 1 pick, and I am drafting Cam Ward. Years ago, Joe Burrow was coming out, and there was the conversation, should the Bengals trade back? And I was adamant, I don't care what anyone offers you. I'm not that high right there, but I'm not that far off from it. That's the starting point.
There you go. That was Dan Orlovsky this morning on TV. So it has gone from, these quarterbacks aren't very good. This is a weak quarterback class. You know, Cam and Shedeur, they wouldn't be as good as J.J. McCarthy, which was what Mel Kiper Jr. was saying, I don't know, Ian, a month ago? Mel was saying J.J. McCarthy was better than Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
I believe Matt Miller put out a story at ESPN.com where they took all of the top quarterback prospects and said, okay, rank these guys where you had them going into the draft. And so even though CJ Stroud's been great, like take that away from it, what you thought going into the draft. And so like Caleb Williams was the number 1 prospect of the group. Trevor Lawrence was number 2. J.J. McCarthy was miles ahead of these two guys. Anthony Richardson was ahead of these two guys. Bryce Young was ahead of these two guys. So now all of a sudden, again, the media perception, the TV perception has gone from, these quarterbacks kind of stink, to, I mean, I'm not ready to say it's the same as Joe Burrow, but I'm getting close, Dan Orlovsky says, to saying this is like Joe Burrow, and no matter what anybody offers you, you do not trade. It doesn't feel that way to me. Again, if the Titans love Cam Ward, then the price for Cam Ward increases significantly than the price would be if they didn't really love him that much. But the problem with that is if they were truly in love with Cam Ward, then there might not be a realistic asking price that you can go get him. But if the Titans really did like Ward that much, again, the Joe Burrow love, just turn the card in and be done with it, like Dan Orlovsky is saying, they'd have been signaling that from the start. And instead, they've been signaling to everybody trade. So I can walk away with, hey, the Titans were intrigued by Cam Ward. They're going to do a little bit more research. They're going to want to see him in a private workout, blah, blah, blah. But now it's Joe Burrow. No matter what you offer, I won't trade. Give me a break. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com, 615-737-1025. Andawan has been waiting patiently and is going to kick us off today. Andawan, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hi, Jared. Thank you for taking my call. I completely agree with you with also the Abdul Carter situation with his split. I definitely wanted Carter at 3 with the Giants with the trade. But since that injury, it's got me more opening to trading back a little further. So I had a diabolical thought for the Titans with draft scenario. Obviously, the Browns, the Giants, Vegas, and the Jets all need quarterbacks. So obviously, the best case scenario, go draft, switch with the Giants at number 3. But I was like, what if the Titans get all these calls and they decide to trade with the Browns at 2? Browns get their guy, probably Cam Ward, but there's still a quarterback on the board, and the Titans are at 2, and then the Titans can okay, well, we'll trade again and get even more assets. And thought that would be the most assets you can get, and you could still get a pretty decent quarterback depending on where you traded with.
So, Andawan, I don't think that your theory is totally off the wall. I'm not. Now, I do think the way you're thinking about it probably is, thank you for your call, the idea that you trade back to 2, because I do believe the Cleveland Browns want Cam Ward. If the Cleveland Browns had the number 1 pick, they would be taking Cam Ward, and there would not be a discussion. They are handcuffed financially by the Deshaun contract and all the other money. Myles Garrett doesn't want to sign an extension. So, again, you get quarterback figured out and then get over to Myles. And they want to do that with Cam Ward. The problem is, again, you have the number 1 pick, and the team at 3 desperately needs a quarterback too. So that can create a bidding war between 2 and 3. But again, the premise is trade back to 2, get something good, like maybe their 2nd round pick. So now you just got the 33rd overall pick or the 34th overall pick or whatever in the draft. And then you trade again, to move to number 5. But here's the issue. I do not think Shedeur Sanders goes in the top 5. I have seen the Shedeur Sanders slide, and I think it's legit. Again, it seems like all the media guys were portraying this quarterback class as Cam Ward v. Shedeur Sanders. And now the combine's not even over, and it's Cam Ward over here. And Cam didn't throw a single pass. Cam Ward over here, and now Shedeur Sanders is in the discussion with Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck and all these other guys. As, Quinn Ewers and Jalen Milroe as perhaps, is he really QB2? Is he not? So I don't think you can do that for the 2 quarterbacks, though that would be freaking sweet. But here's what I think you can do. I think you can trade back with the Giants to 3. And then I think you can trade it again. That's what I think you can do. The one thing you've got to be careful of, though, if you do that, is you have to understand the top end of the draft. Again, there's the first 3 players, Ward, Hunter, and Carter. Those 3 are kind of in a class by themselves. Well, if you trade back to 3, you can still get one of those 3 players. If you trade out of 3, you're not getting one of those players. If you trade too far back, then the elite players in the draft, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, Tyler Warren, Will Campbell's arm length. I think this is all stupid about measuring a guy's arms. If he can play left tackle, put him at left tackle. If he can't play left tackle, then move him inside to guard. But again, I guess I fought that battle and lost last time with Skoronski, but he's probably down a peg now. So that second crew, the Mason Grahams, if you trade twice, you're probably out of that. The key would be, is anybody going to be interested to trade up to get Hunter? Would anybody be interested in trading up to get Mason Graham? To jump the Patriots at 4 and get Mason Graham. It's not about, the second trade back is not going to be about a quarterback. And if you're doing that, you've got to move to a spot in the draft where you can get the guy that you really, really, truly covet. And this is what the really smart general managers do. This takes a lot of discipline, and it is so hard to actually do. Jimmy Johnson did this incredibly well in Dallas. Now, he had the picks from the Herschel Walker trade to be able to maneuver up and down the board. But Jimmy didn't take the 6th best player with the 2nd pick. Jimmy, if he was the 6th best player, traded back to 6 so that he took him for the appropriate value. If you're the Titans, and let's say you love Tyler Warren, but he's the 7th best player in the draft, then you got to trade back and take him at 7. Not do what they did last year, which was, we're just going to take J.C. Latham because we have to have a tackle. And just leave Brock Bowers sitting out there. Can't do that. Joey from Bellevue says, not too long ago, Dan Orlovsky was saying the Titans trade the number 1 overall pick for Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, Dan Orlovsky's a hot taker. So I know he's an analyst and he calls games and he played. So people are like, oh, yep, serious football analyst. And I'm like, this dude is a Skip Bayless level taker. Like, he says crazy stuff all the time. Chris in Nashville says, like Floyd would say, it's lying season. I'm going to tell you another thing Floyd said one time. Floyd told me that this is the time of year where you try to avoid the owner. I said, avoid the owner? Say, yeah. This is the time where because the owner's going to ask, what are we thinking? And the last thing you want to do is tell the owner, because the owner's the only person that can go talk to the media and you can't fire them for doing it. Owners get involved. This is why manipulating the media is so important. Because with the Jets and the Giants, and I don't think Brady is going to be that easily manipulated in Vegas, but Mark Davis absolutely is easy to manipulate. Jimmy Haslam, Johnny Manziel and Deshaun Watson manipulated Jimmy Haslam. That's key. These guys see Dan Orlovsky sitting on television talking about Joe Burrow, and they're going to sit there and they're going to be like, we got to have him. And now it doesn't matter what the GM or the coach thinks. Does not matter. The owner said, I want him. Now he's going to go get him. So I wouldn't be so worried about the lying season. I absolutely think people are lying. But at the same time, I also think that, this is where, these dysfunctional teams, and you're certainly one of them, These dysfunctional teams aren't picking 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. They're not picking there on accident. It is not a coincidence that these teams all have high picks and they all suck. And this is where, if you play your cards right, you can take advantage of it. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. Ian,
Yes.
I'm in love.
Oh, boy.
I am in love. Did you think about me when you saw this? Be honest. Because you know what the next topic is.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
I mean, I am in freaking love. And I'm not sure the Titans will be able to take this guy. But if I was Jerry Jones, it'd be hard for me not to walk in there and say, I want him. We'll get to that next. Tell me the company want to do the game.
Now, in terms of a non-quarterback, who did you find especially impressive yesterday in workouts?
University of Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden. He transferred from University of Houston, and we're going to hear a lot of comparisons, Hannah, to last year's Xavier Worthy, same school. He ran 4.29, as we're seeing here on the screen, but he was also productive during the season, 58 catches, 9 touchdowns. He's an outstanding route runner with really good hands. So when you combine the film with what he did yesterday here between running his 40-yard dash, I think he's clearly a first-round pick. And again, we're going to hear the Golden, Xavier Worthy comparisons all spring long because of their speed and the same school.
There you go. That was Mike T. And let me say this. I love him. Matthew Golden, wide receiver at Texas. Ian, I have fallen in love with a draft prospect this year.
Okay.
Matthew Golden. He is productive. Like, again, I did not sit there and just, like, break down the Texas football tape, but I watched enough Texas throughout the year, right? I watched the Georgia game. I watched the Vanderbilt game. I watched the Texas versus A&M game at the end of the year. I watched the SEC title game, and I watched the 3 playoff games that they played. And this freaking Energizer Bunny was all over the place in pretty much all of them. So I know he's a productive player. I talk about this again. I want the guys that are good in college, because if you're good in college, chances are you're probably going to be good in the pros. I know Tim Tebow kind of sucked, but outside of that, if you're good in college, you're probably going to be good in the pros. So he was a very good in college. He is absolutely a first rounder. And I was seeing all the people talk about like late first, early second on Matthew Golden after the playoff. And I was like, I wouldn't mind taking him with the 35th pick in the draft. But now that he set the standard this year, he was the fastest receiver at the combine. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, 4.25, I think is what he checked in at.
Who was that, or 4.29, something like that?
Elite speed. I mean, elite. He's going in the top 10. So it's probably not worth talking about, because the Titans probably aren't going to move back far enough to where it makes sense. But in a draft where I don't love a lot of the prospects, especially at the premium positions, like Will Campbell at LSU, he's got short arms. He might be a guard. No, thank you. Travis Hunter, everybody tells me he's a corner, not a receiver. No, thank you. The Georgia pass rushers didn't flash too much when I watched. Again, I think I watched enough Georgia to where if Jalen Walker or if Michael Williams was just making play after play after play after play, then I'd have an idea who the hell that is. And for the most part, didn't really notice him much. But Golden, he was awesome in college. And he tested like a beast at the combine. And again, he's fast. You cannot coach that. And look, there's no questioning, because we saw it in the games. I mean, I saw him take a screen pass and run up the field with it. I want to say there was one of these plays, maybe in the SEC title game, where like a ball got tipped in the air, Golden caught it, and he ran up the sideline with the ball. I mean, he's a special player. He's fast in the games. He's fast in the testing. He's fast. Arizona's Tet McMillan, who people think is the first receiver in this draft, didn't run. And you want to know why Tet McMillan didn't run? And I like Tet McMillan because he's big and he's lumbering and he's definitely a player. But you want to know why Tet McMillan didn't run at the combine? Because fast guys run fast and slow guys don't run. Matthew Golden, when I looked at PFF, just again, not his grade or whatever, but Matthew Golden, 4 drops this season, which means he's got consistent hands. Doesn't do you any good if you can run, if you can't catch. He can catch. 61% this year on contested catches. That means when it's him and the DB, and this was Texas's schedule. This wasn't Scarbini Tech like Shedeur Sanders played against. This is freaking the best of the best. 61% contested catches. Matthew Golden plays 70% of the time out wide, and he can also go inside to the slot if you want him to. He had 13 catches on balls that were 20 air yards or more. He's legit. and I love him. And so, again, I mean, hey, I'd love to sign Sam Darnold at quarterback, trade back with the Giants to 3, trade back again with somebody like the Raiders or the Jets or whatever, and take Matthew Golden. Load up on picks, get my quarterback in Darnold, take Golden, and just bomb the ball down the field with Golden and Calvin Ridley, and we're going to run the ball with Tony Pollard, and I can get a Cam Robinson, Dan Moore, Morgan Moses, my tackle in the draft or in free agency, and then just bomb it down the field. And I think I think he's a star. And maybe he'll be an all-time bust, and people say, Jared, you got worked up when it came to the combine and the 40 time and everything else. But I'm telling you, I freaking love that Matthew Golden. And my favorite thing about Matthew Golden is, again, that in the games, he played like a great player. It wasn't just he showed up to the combine, nobody had ever heard of him. No. In the games, against elite competition, which is what Texas went up against, he played. And so, Ian, I'm in love.
All right, I like it. We need some speed.
I'm in love with a draft prospect. One texter into the text line says, where does Isaiah Bond end up getting drafted? After busting on beating the record he swore he was going to break of his ex-teammate Xavier Worthy. I don't think Isaiah Bond and Xavier Worthy played together. Isaiah Bond was at Alabama. Isaiah Bond, the difference between Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden for me is this. Isaiah Bond does not play well in the games. He was a 5-star recruit at Alabama, got every opportunity there, played a little bit, did a little bit, went to Texas, played a little bit, did a little bit, but he wasn't producing like Matthew Golden. Again, that's my thing is you're going to take this guy who's a 5-star recruit, supposed to be a great player, played at Alabama, played at Texas. Let's take him. But he didn't do it in the games. Golden did it in the games. And that matters to me. One text says, Jared, you clearly don't understand Georgia football. None of their defenders are off the chart stat guys. Even Jalen Carter wasn't putting up numbers. They work as a unit and as a team. Shut up. Jalen Carter was every time you watched Georgia play, it was, let's flash on this big guy in the middle who's absolutely tearing up the interior of the other team's offensive line. Every time you watch them play. Brock Bowers at Georgia was that kind of player. Like, I'm sorry. But for me, like, I got to feel these guys in the game when I watch. The one guy who everybody loves, who I didn't necessarily love that much in terms of them getting after it, was Will Anderson, who everyone's like, oh, he's incredible. I'm like, But like the Georgia edge rushers, I mean, I think there's probably more Travon Walker. Like, there's a lot of talent there, but they're not great players as much as some of the previous Georgia guys where it was like, man, Quay Walker is a beast when you'd watch the games. And that's how I feel about the Georgia rushers. They just didn't do enough in the games when I'd watch. And I feel like I'd watch enough Georgia football. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. Shedeur Sanders is falling in the draft. How can he possibly be falling in the draft if he didn't throw a single pass, run a single yard, or lift a single weight this week at the combine? We'll get to that next. Stillman Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios here on, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on the Monday after the NFL Scouting Combine. Or I guess technically the Combine is still going on, but, you know, the nuts and bolts, we've moved on from the Combine. Now it's like, look how many times this guy's bench pressing 225. That's kind of the thing that they're looking at, not as much the TV show of it is, for all intents and purposes, pretty much over. I guess they'll still be doing some here, some there, whatever. And now there is a narrative that is starting to come out that is that Shedeur Sanders is falling in the draft. Because, again, everyone's always considered this a 1-2 punch. Cam Ward 1, Shedeur Sanders 2, Shedeur Sanders 1, Cam Ward 2. You know, do you want the guy that has a little bit more upside and raw talent? That's Ward. Do you want the guy who's a more established passer? That's Sanders. You know, again, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning. Every year there's two quarterbacks. Drew Bledsoe, Rick Meyer, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. There's always two, right? So how can Cam Ward be rising? And how can Shedeur Sanders be falling? How can there be a separation when neither of them threw a pass this week in Indianapolis? And the truth is, Shedeur is not falling. Media people are starting to be informed that Shedeur Sanders was never really there. I go back to a conversation I had with a former general manager on January 20th, where I texted this former GM and I said, do you like the two quarterbacks in this class? And the former general manager texted back, and I quote, meh, I like Ward better, but even he has some things to fine tune. Blake Bedingfield at paulkaharski.com. Blake, the former Titans director of college scouting, you know, the guy that banged on the table for them to draft Derrick Henry, was asked by PK. Let me get the date of this here. He was asked by PK on January 6th. He was asked by PK, how do you have Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward graded based on your film reviews? Who's next at quarterback? Blake wrote, quote, Ward is graded as a first rounder. I would say his value is between 20 and 32. Sanders is a second rounder. He's not an immediate starter. The football people have been telling you. We had Trevor Sikkema on our show, the lead draft analyst at Pro Football Focus at the Super Bowl. And I asked Trevor Sikkema, I said, what do you make of Sanders? And he said low second round, early third round grade. Shedeur Sanders, as far as teams' draft boards were concerned, Shedeur Sanders was never realistic for the discussion of QB1. But what has happened is people were aware of him because of Deion at Colorado, and they watched Colorado's games, and there's no disputing that Deion Sanders drives people to the television. There is absolutely no disputing it. I mean, people look at what Deion Sanders has done at Colorado, and they say, look at the job they've done turning it around. Nobody says that about Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Nobody says that about Jeff Brom at Louisville, because nobody runs to the television to go watch Kenny Dillingham. But people watch Colorado games because of Deion, and so they know who Shedeur is, just based off of what they saw. The quarterbacks in college this year, as far as the good teams, weren't very good as far as the draft. Ewers wasn't very good. Will Howard was good in the playoffs, but Will Howard didn't have a great season. There wasn't some Joe Burrow leading the way to the Heisman Trophy. So people knew who Shedeur was. And that allows them to be able to argue it on television, to know who the guy is, to talk about what he can do, what he can't do. And I was thinking about this. What does the average taker at ESPN know about Jackson Dart? I'm not talking about Mike Tannenbaum or Mel Kiper, but I'm talking about the takers, the guys they put on these shows. What does Mad Dog Russo, and you know I love Mad Dog Russo. I got an email from Dog the other day. What does Mad Dog Russo know about Jackson Dart? What does Stephen A. Smith know about these quarterbacks in this draft outside of the one game he watched Jalen Milroe play this year for Alabama? But the football people inside the league probably never viewed Shedeur Sanders the way that, again, the media viewed Shedeur Sanders. So then everybody goes to Indianapolis. All the draft gurus, all the insiders. Again, football is by far the number one sport. As Mike Wilbon said, we're all just football fans now, and then we have other teams and other sports we like. So everyone goes to Indianapolis, where it's truly like a big football convention. Media, agents, team execs, all there at one time. This isn't like the Super Bowl, where you have all this promotional stuff going on, and you have all these Hall of Fame players hawking pneumococcal pneumonia and Subway sandwiches and everything. No. This is different. This, again, is more business-like as far as the convention's concerned. No team execs go to the Super Bowl. And so they start talking to all the media guys. And all the media guys walk away reporting what they've heard from the football guys. And the media guys are saying, yeah, Ward is head and shoulders ahead of Sanders. Then people view that because they've been watching TV and they've been reading mock drafts online. People then view that and say, oh, wow, Shedeur Sanders is falling. Oh, wow, Cam Ward is rising. That's not what happened. Shedeur Sanders did not fall at the combine, and Cam Ward did not rise. Again, neither of them threw a single pass, ran to a single cone, or lifted a single weight. It's not them that rose and fell. It's the media's perception of where these quarterbacks stand amongst NFL teams. Shedeur Sanders is a TV prospect, just like Tim Tebow was. Shedeur Sanders was never that high of a prospect, even though, again, TV will tell us he was. TV had him mocked number 3 overall. But he never was viewed that way. Again, I go back to what Blake Bedingfield said. Quote, Sanders is a second rounder. He's not an immediate starter. So you mean to tell me that all of a sudden teams are just going to say, you know what, he's the third pick in the draft? No, that's not how you do business. What you do is the quarterbacks that are, the 16th best player get bumped up to number 1 like Jared Goff in a good draft because they play quarterback. But they don't take a guy who's a second rounder and put him at number 1. But the media did that. And the media did this 3 years ago. Because I remember the Kenny Pickett draft. And I remember Mike Tomlin stalking Malik Willis around the Senior Bowl. And how they had wings the night before the pro day workout. And how Mike Tomlin loved Malik Willis. Because he wanted to take the other guy. And he did. And Malik Willis, Jordan Reed at ESPN had Malik Willis mocked at number 2 to the Detroit Lions. Number 2. Not one football guy amongst the 32 teams took him in the first round. Not one football guy amongst the 32 teams took him in the second round. TV, again, they got to talk quarterbacks. So they were talking about Malik Willis like he was a high-end prospect, like he was going to go in the first round, because even though he wasn't that good compared to these other guys, it's quarterback, and they're going to bump him up. And that's Malik Willis, a nobody that went to a nowhere school. This is Deion Sanders' kid, who's been on TV for 2 years straight. And the fact that, I listened to Robbie and Joe this morning, and they do not understand that Shedeur is a TV prospect. Shedeur never had the talent to go with the number 1 overall pick. Shedeur never beat a good team in college. Shedeur Sanders was throwing to the Heisman Trophy winner. Again, He's Deion's son. Deion's son gets us to turn on the TV. We turn on the TV. They on TV talk about things that we'll watch on TV. We watch Deion's son. We all have opinions. They'll argue about them. Shedeur was never, by the football people, considered in the same class with Cam Ward. Whether it's the former general manager that I was texting with, whether it's what Blake Bedingfield wrote at Paul's website, whether it's what all the analysts they tried to tell you, Mike Renner had Shedeur Sanders ranked as the 40th best player in this draft a month ago. 40th. So no, Shedeur Sanders was not falling this week at the Combine. I saw that Josina Anderson put out a report that said that Shedeur came off poorly in the meetings. I don't buy it. My guess is everybody went to Indianapolis saying, what do you think of Ward? And team said, he's first round pick. Then they went, what do you think of Sanders? He's not that good. And they walked away saying, wow, the gap between Sanders and Ward is huge. It was always that big. But TV has to fill time talking about people you know. That's why they didn't waste your time on Dylan Gabriel. Because, again, nobody's sitting here at the water cooler wanting to talk about Dylan Gabriel. They are wanting to talk about Shedeur Sanders. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. We'll get back to your phones. 615-737-1025 here on the program. And I do have somebody to call out when it comes to the Titans and Shedeur Sanders and all this talk. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
It does sound like in the interviews, Cam Ward has been, I would say, exactly what the teams hope. Does seem, based on the conversations I've had with general managers, top evaluators, that it is Cam Ward right now and everyone else. I'm not saying he's going to go number one, but it does seem, as it stands now, that if a quarterback goes number one, it is likely him, knowing that we haven't seen him do anything at the Senior Bowl, didn't see him do anything here. His pro day obviously looms large. After that, there's some questions, though. I mean, Shedeur Sanders seems like he acquitted himself well in interviews this week, too. His overall knowledge was good. He, of course, has talked about the change in culture. He's had two different places, certainly in contention to be QB2, but I'm not sure that we are there yet. Jackson Dart and press teams as well threw really nicely behind us. Quinn Ewers wasn't asked to do a ton in college. I know teams were sort of like wondering why. You can see the way he threw out there today. He's got the arm talent. He's also got the confidence, maybe a little more of a quiet guy, but got the confidence. It seems to me to be more up in the air as far as who is QB2, who is QB3, and that process is going to shake out over the next couple of weeks. Wouldn't be surprised to see another in the top 5. Wouldn't be surprised to see another there in the top 10. Still a long way to go.
Oh, Ian Rappaport at NFL Network on the draft broadcast. Ian Rappaport, who's never had an original thought when it comes to football, is sitting there telling you, yeah, Cam Ward is clearly QB1, and he's not ready, just the teams I've talked to, he's not ready to say Shedeur Sanders is clearly QB2. Hey, it might be Jackson Dart. Hey, it might be Quinn Ewers. Hey, it might be Jalen Milroe. Hey, it might be any one of these handful of guys, and Shedeur's over there more so than he is over here with Cam Ward. I believe it was Greg Cosell said that he's got Tyler Shuck at Louisville as the number 2 quarterback based off the tape. And I watched Tyler Shuck play every game in college this year. He's okay. I think he profiles as an NFL backup. You know, like Chad Henne, an NFL backup. And he might be QB2 in this draft. And I just have to say this when it comes to the Shedeur Sanders talk. Team Sanders here in town has gotten awfully quiet here lately. I mean, I love the distinguished gentleman in the YouTube chat. Guy watches the show every single day on YouTube. We've got like a group of about 10 people in the YouTube chat that watch every day, and it's like they all come to hang out with each other, and they all talk in the comments, and the distinguished gentleman is the leader in the clubhouse. This guy in the YouTube chat every single day for the entire season defended Ran Carthon, said he was not getting fired, said that the entire front office was in lockstep, all of this stuff. We thought he might be Rand's burner, but considering the fact that he apparently loves the Georgia Bulldogs and he's still watching the show every day and commenting on it, probably makes me think that he's not Ran Carthon's burner. But, I mean, he was sending the watch emoji every day about Shedeur Sanders. Now it's all Cam Ward this, Cam Ward that. Well, what happened? Team Sanders, where are you? You guys told me to watch a tape, and now I'm being told that Sanders is closer to Tyler Shuck and he's closer to Jackson Dart than he is to Cam Ward. What happened, Team Sanders? If you love your quarterback, shouldn't you be banging the table for him? I didn't back off on Anthony Richardson. If you love your quarterback, stand up, Team Sanders. Where'd they go? Somebody help me. What happened? I thought that everybody thought that Shedeur was the man, and now, oh no. Now NFL teams get to the combine, they tell the media he's not any good, and now everyone's like, okay, Cam Ward. Ward. Got it. Here's what I really want to know. What I really want to know, and nobody's talked about this, I want to know how the Titans feel about Abdul Carter's injury. Because the Titans are sending signals to the league that they've narrowed it down if they use the first pick to 4 players, Ward, Sanders, Carter, and Hunter, which is why they are basically coercing all 4 to come in for a visit before free agency. But they're not taking Sanders because Ward is clearly better than Sanders. So then it's down to 3. Hunter just doesn't make any sense. You take a cornerback with the first overall pick. So then if you're going to use the first overall pick, then it's really, we should all be in agreement. If they're going to use the first overall pick, it really comes down to Abdul Carter or Cam Ward, right? Again, if you're going to make that pick, because the one thing you have to be prepared for, and I have no idea how the trade discussions went at the combine or how they didn't go. Again, I don't do this game where it's like, well, the Giants reportedly are interested, according to Dan Graziano. How interested? What are they willing to offer? How do you know that? So I don't get into the Giants will definitely offer. They're desperate. Trust me, they'll do it. I don't get into that game. At the end of the day, you have to be prepared, if nobody meets your asking price, to pick somebody with the first pick. The only logical options are Ward or Carter. So I really want to know how they feel about Carter's foot injury. Because if they're running this like the last regimes, they won't care. The Robinson administration, the Carthon administration, they would have drafted Abdul Carter. Screw the foot, he'll be fine. It'll be fine. But I wonder with this group. But again, Team Sanders, they bought the hype. He was never there. So where is Team Sanders? Where are they? The distinguished gentleman is arguing that he always said in the YouTube chat that he would take either. Again, Shedeur Sanders is a TV prospect, as in it plays on TV. 615-737-1025. And our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. One texter says, I'm hoping Sanders and Ward whip the Titans' ass for the next decade, and I'm a Titan fan. The negativity in tearing these guys down gets old and played out. Just let everything unfold first. Dude, this is sports radio. What, are we supposed to just sit here for 2 months and wait until the draft? And then we're just supposed to sit after that for 4 months until they play football? And then because they're young quarterbacks, we're going to have to wait 2 years? No. We talk about these things now. And here's what I think is great. Also, what's the negativity on Ward? Here's what I think is great. As much as this stuff shouldn't matter, and I'm talking about me, like as much as like my opinions shouldn't matter, Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker, Reggie McKenzie, Dave Ziegler, all of those guys who, by the way, if you read the Breer piece today at Sports Illustrated, clearly all have more juice than Brian Callahan in the organization right now. But all these guys should never, ever, ever listen to anything that I say and pretend that it matters. But I can tell you in New York, John Mara gets in the car and he puts on WFA again. The other team in New York might be better off listening to WFAN to decide what players to get, because as of right now, all we know is they bank on Madden Football's player rankings. That is where this stuff matters. The owners. The owners don't grind the tape. The owners don't go to the combine. The owners, for the most part, don't go to the pro days. But then when it comes time to draft and the general manager is like, hey, we should take Johnny, every now and then an owner will stick his nose in there and say, I like Jimmy. And if he says that, then they have to take him. So I would say that that's what kind of, as far as the negativity, like I wonder what they're saying in New York, but that does matter there. As stupid as all this sounds. 615-737-1025. Speaking of TV prospects and TV players, I feel like there is a massive gap between where TV and the public view one player and where, again, I think the football people actually view the same player. And I think you guys hate this player. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
Graziano, what are you hearing out of Minnesota, where obviously they had a lot of success with Sam Darnold last year, and they drafted J.J. McCarthy high before that?
They believe in J.J. McCarthy as their quarterback of the future. They're very determined not to rush his development, but they also, believe at some point, probably this year, that he's going to be the guy for them. So do they bring back Sam Darnold? I think Sam Darnold's market elsewhere would have to bottom out, and he would have to come back to the Vikings for probably a below-market deal if that's going to happen. There had been some talk, would they franchise him? It doesn't sound like that's likely. If they do, I believe it's because they've identified a trade market for him, and they're franchising him with the intent of trading him.
There you go. That was Dan Graziano, who was saying it sounds like if he gets tagged tomorrow, Sam Darnold, and Titan fans, how happy are you that, again, we'll know one way or another tomorrow by this time if Sam Darnold is a true free agent or if you got to deal with the tag. But he says if they tag him, it's tagging him to trade him. That they view J.J. McCarthy as the quarterback of the future, so Darnold is, if J.J. is the quarterback of the future, Darnold is not. I bring this up because I've been talking about Shedeur Sanders today, and again, I think the difference in how TV views Shedeur Sanders and how the NFL views Shedeur Sanders, and I feel like there is a massive gap between what the public thinks of Sam Darnold and what the football people think about Sam Darnold, which is why I think we're not hearing much about Sam Darnold. Mike Tannenbaum, of the guys at the table this morning on ESPN, Mike Tannenbaum is the only one who's kind of sat in those executive seats before. And so Graziano is just going to tell you as a reporter what he's been hearing. And what he's hearing is JJ is the quarterback of the future. And the only way they tag Darnold and give him the $40 million is if they're going to trade him somewhere else. They might bring him back for $25 million, but certainly not $40 million. And I can't remember who the player was that was sitting there at the table, but he's a player. So Tannenbaum's the only guy that's kind of got the knowledge of running a team. And listen to Tannenbaum talk about Darnold, and I can just hear the listeners of this program just spit when they hear what he says. Play the Tannenbaum cut.
What is Sam Darnold? I know this is a really...
proved he's a good starting quarterback in the NFL in the right place.
Yeah, and let's not overcomplicate it. If I'm the Vikings, I'm keeping Sam Darnold. I know the last 2 games didn't go well, but before that, we're talking about him as a potential MVP. Okay. And if I can have depth at the quarterback position heading into September, I'm going to do it. I understand.
But is there not a price where it's too much?
50? I'm paying. If Matt Stafford's at 40, I'm paying Sam Darnold 40. I'm not going to 50. And I'm not sure someone's going to pay him more than that. But look, guys, I love J.J. McCarthy. I saw him a ton of times at Michigan, and I think he has a great future. But if we're the Vikings and we have a chance to meaningfully compete, which we do, I am going to have depth at that position. It may cost me a position player, but Sam Darnold, minus the last 2 games, played top 10 quarterback.
Okay, he's selling you. If Matthew Stafford's $40 million, I'll go to $40 million on Sam Darnold. That is what the one football guy there just told you. Greenberg, again, Jets fan, Greenberg's like, how good is Darnold? And he tells you he's $40 million. If Matthew Stafford is $40 million, Sam Darnold is $40 million. And I could just hear the audience of this program. When I heard Tannenbaum say that this morning, I could just hear the audience of this program go, what? $40 million for Sam Darnold. But Jared, he was awful with the Jets. He was awful with Carolina. It's actually not true. He was 4-2 as a starter in 2022. He had a higher QBR than Aaron Rodgers. We just leave that out because it's convenient. Nobody watched those games. He was horrible. He's a one-hit wonder. He was awful in those last 2 games. By the way, Patrick Mahomes was pretty terrible in his last game. Does he suck? We had Coach Les Steckel call in a couple of weeks ago. Again, we didn't ask Coach Steckel to call. He just called in because he was defending Sam Darnold in those last 2 games because he didn't feel like the Vikings schemed it very well. And he used to be the Vikings coach. I think everybody, when it comes to Darnold, the reason there's not a lot of chatter around Darnold with the Grazianos and the Schefters and the Florios and the Rappaports and that nobody's fighting over this at Starbucks is because everybody in the football world is playing this close to the vest. I saw Minnesota's writer for The Athletic put out there that they think that the Raiders are going to be really involved on Sam Darnold. I saw the Raiders writer for The Athletic said the Raiders don't like Sam Darnold. Again, I think everybody is playing it close to the vest. Minnesota had a grand plan when they took J.J. McCarthy with the 10th overall pick that J.J. McCarthy was ultimately going to be the starting quarterback. Are you ready to blow up your plan with J.J. McCarthy that you had less than a year ago? Because committing to Sam Darnold, there's only one quarterback, means it's not going to be J.J. Then when it comes to all these other teams, I think Minnesota's trying to get a feel. How does Tennessee feel about Darnold? How do the Giants feel about Darnold? We know he's not going to the Jets. How do the Steelers? How do the Raiders? How do they feel about Sam Darnold? Is there a mystery team that would dump their current quarterback to be able to get Sam Darnold? And again, they don't know. But I think the way the football people view Sam Darnold is infinitely different than the way the public, the TV side of things, view Sam Darnold. I think the public opinion is bust in New York, terrible in Carolina. Again, 4-2 with a team that Baker was 1-5 with. Terrible in Carolina. He stinks. Awful in the last two games. And the football people like Tannenbaum are saying, they're like, he threw for 4,300 yards last year. Threw for 30 touchdowns. Like he's a former high number one pick. Like he's got talent. He finally realized it a little bit last year. And again, the public is, oh, he sucks. And again, it's kind of that same dichotomy with how the football people feel about Shedeur Sanders and how the TV people in the public was talking about Shedeur Sanders. So I think mum has been the word on Darnold because these teams do want Sam Darnold. So they're keeping their feelings close to the vest, hoping that he doesn't get tagged, hoping that, hey, we can come out here. Again, I've said I'm going to $41 million a year on Darnold. In fact, I don't have my free agency board in front of me, but we are going to go over the free agency boards are back, by the way.
Fun.
We are going to go over the free agency board at quarterback at 5:00 today. And I put a contract that I would offer to each guy. And with Darnold, I mean, I have not moved off of my 4 years, 164, and I'll guarantee 80, but it'll really be more like 100 million guaranteed because 20 million or 25 million will guarantee on the third day of the second league year. And I'm willing to do it, and on you go. 41 million. I might go to 45 million. Probably not going to go to 50 million, but I might go to that. But the reason that I think teams aren't saying this kind of stuff, and they're telling all the media, oh, yeah, no, we'll see. Not so sure. We'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. I think the reason for that is simply because they don't want the cat out of the bag that, hey, these teams, they view him as a legit quarterback. I think the question for a lot of these teams is, are you sure Cam Ward is better than Sam Darnold is right now? Sam Darnold is 27. He's not 37 like these other guys. You guys want Derek Carr. Derek Carr sucks. You guys want Derek Carr. I'm telling you, the league views Darnold differently than the public does. Just like they've always viewed Shedeur Sanders differently than the public does. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. Plus, speaking of those free agent boards, I was kind of wowed by one guy in particular and kind of the sneaky season he had that I don't think it's talked about enough. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106 for the game.
If I'm the Giants, now option number one does become Aaron Rodgers. That's just their reality. It's a little bit of desperation because their reality is this. Brian Daboll, Joe Shane, they got to win by November or you're gone. That's just the reality of that league. As great as I think Brian Daboll is as a coach, the likeliest way for you to do that, Malik Neighbors, get him the football as many times as you can. He broke the rookie receiving record last year. We know Aaron feeds receivers. Devontae Adams led the league in catches for like 4 straight years. So the starting point is Aaron Rodgers. I'm not telling you it's the done deal. The second part of it is what I would do is this. I would very much so entertain Jackson Dart from Ole Miss or Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Because you got to win.
I like those guys, but we're sitting 10 miles down the road and you walk in and say, hey, let's go get Rodgers. I would tell you he's going to be 42 in December.
I agree.
He's athletically diminished, and it's been years, guys.
Okay, so let's live in this world, Mike.
Let's
live in this world. Okay, you call Tennessee. Tennessee's like, ain't happening, bud. Okay, so then what's option number 2 then? Because if you're going to tell me then it's no to Aaron Rodgers, what's your option? Because you got to win.
That was Orlovsky this morning, and get ready for a lot of chat on this program about what the Giants are going to do at quarterback. Now, Ian, I don't know if you care what the Giants are going to do at quarterback, but it is kind of pertinent to our discussions as far as what the Titans end up doing with the number 1 pick and where they end up going at quarterback.
Fair.
So
yeah.
We're going to be paying a lot more attention to the Giants than we ever have.
Well, the QB carousel in general is interesting. So
absolutely. And the Giants are the closest to you in the draft pecking order, and they may be the most desperate. So last year, we made what was called the free agent board. If you're looking at the stream, you can see right now in front of you that I take almost every player I expect to be available at a certain position, and I go through their entire seasons and map it out. And there were a lot of things. Today at 5 o'clock, we'll go over the quarterback options on the free agent board. The one thing I was surprised by, just how positive Aaron Rodgers' season was last year. He had a pretty solid season. He started all 17 games. He threw 28 touchdowns, had 11 interceptions. He had a QB rating of 90.5. He only had 12 turnover-worthy plays, 1.8% turnover-worthy play percentage, 4th in the NFL. He had the Jet receivers drop the ball 39 times, which led the NFL at 9.6%. I mean, look, they won 5 games, but the Jets have always sucked. It might not be Aaron's fault. I think Robert Saleh was a dope and Nathaniel Hackett was a dope, and they all were. I was surprised. Aaron had a solid season for a quarterback in the NFL. He just didn't have a solid season for Aaron Rodgers. And so, again, when it comes to Rodgers, like, he's probably better than a lot of these Scarbinis out there, but he's not going to be the same Aaron Rodgers. You just have to understand that. If the Giants go get Aaron Rodgers, he'll be a solid quarterback that they're acquiring, but it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. I'm just a little surprised when I did the research. Back to your phone, 615-737-1025. Jordan in Nashville says, I was someone who wanted Shedeur Sanders because I thought he was the safest NFL-ready quarterback who could max out around to the level of Jalen Hurts. Sanders' 2 largest flaws against him were slow reads and a lower than average arm. He also, by the way, is not very athletic, which is shocking considering he's Deion Sanders' son. Him not going to the combine to test and show off his analytical ability to read defenses or showcase his arm on the biggest stage makes me very weary. Still not in love with Cam Ward because we were just sold on a quarterback who had great physical makeup, but who couldn't make good reads to play the position effectively, which is the exact same knock on Ward, but at least with him, athletic ability is not an issue. Ward and Levis are nothing alike. I've watched the tape. Don't get it twisted. So I will just leave you at that. If you ever want to, well, you know, they play some hero ball. They turn. It sounds like Will Levis. They play nothing alike. Cam Ward's game is fluid. Like, it is fluid. Sometimes like too passive. Will Levis looks like he downs 9 cups of coffee before he goes out there to throw the ball and then chucks it as far as he can. One texter says 4-2 is a starter, so Sam Darnold was basically the backup. Right, in Carolina in 2022. And I think we can all agree Carolina is a screwed-up place. Just like we can all agree the Jets are a screwed-up place. The 2 places where Sam Darnold supposedly didn't have success. In 2022, the Panthers acquired Baker Mayfield to be the starting quarterback, and I want to say that was during the summer. Remember, there was kind of a standoff between the Browns even though they had acquired Deshaun and the Panthers. So they acquire Baker Mayfield. And so Baker's the starter. And P.J. Walker was the backup because the owner liked P.J. Walker in the XFL or whatever Fakakta league he played in. And Darnold was the third stringer. By the middle of the year, they were horrendous. Fired Matt Rule, the college coach who sucked. And by the end of the year, they were competing for that division. As bad as they were, and it was because they had turned to Sam Darnold at quarterback, and Sam Darnold was actually playing great. But you would have had to watch that to know. And so I keep saying that when it comes to Darnold, that like he wasn't that bad in Carolina, and he certainly was good in Minnesota. I mean, I was dying on the 4-2 in Carolina last year about Darnold getting a chance, and he ended up being a Pro Bowler. And I'm talking about a real Pro Bowler, not named after the 9th guy turned it down. One texter says, I was actually excited that Stafford might leave the Rams and sign Darnold strictly so we could go a day without listening to you tell us how good Sam Darnold is. And you'll say, you tell us he's Tannehill 2.0, but you talk about him so much, you think he'd be Patrick Mahomes. Well, it's quarterback. It gets discussed every day. Last year at the Super Bowl, Will Levis played in that stupid ping pong tournament. I had to go to it because I was told by the people that were putting on the ping pong tournament that I could get 10 minutes with Levis after it was over. So I know I was going to record the interview, and then we were going to promote it all day. Then at 2 o'clock at the Super Bowl, Will Levis sits down with me. And I waited that entire time watching Suits on my iPhone while they played ping pong. Will Levis was at the Super Bowl this past year, sat down at some point with Jim White. I didn't even bother worrying about Will Levis because his 5 minutes are up. But when you're the quarterback in a town that has an NFL team, you're the number one topic. So when you're like, you talk about Sam Darnold so much, yeah, because by tomorrow, we'll know whether or not he's going to be a free agent. This team, I don't know if you guys noticed it, Mike Morganzi got the job. He said we need to solidify the quarterback position. Number one, quarterback is important. One doctor says, why waste your money on a good quarterback that's going to fill a gap till you find your franchise quarterback when you're not going to win anyway? I don't know. Worked for Kansas City. How do you know you're not going to win? Minnesota won last year. Did they win enough? I don't know. But again, you guys keep telling me, well, there's no point in Darnold because this team sucks. Well, this team sucks less if he's the quarterback. One texter says, would you rather take Carr and have an experienced quarterback if that's all that's available, or Levis, and you don't pick a quarterback in the draft? Not a Carr fan, just asking. Neither are options. Levis is not an option. Carr is not an option. I don't understand what the question is. 615-737-1025 here on our program, 615-737-1025. You guys know TD's my guy, and you guys know TD is plugged in. Well, TD said on Twitter what he thinks the Titans are going to do with the number one pick in the draft. And if I was GM, that's what I'd want people to think too. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So yesterday I was scrolling around on Twitter, and I was up on the For You tab, and I was just kind of minding my own business, and I saw a tweet from TD. And it was a tweet in reply to somebody else who was talking about the Titans taking Cam Ward. And again, it just kind of came up on my feed where, as the Cam Ward talk keeps going, TD said that he believes the Titans are going to make the pick with Cam Ward. That at number one, TD thinks the Titans are taking Cam Ward, or if they use the pick, he thinks it's going to be on Cam Ward. TD sent me a text yesterday and said, you can forget about Shedeur being the pick. If they stay put, they're taking Cam. TD was on our midday show and was asked about the pick at number one. Here's what TD said.
Let's say Tehran was forced to bet his house on who the Titans will draft in round one. Please ask him what he would say, and then ask him as if he was being forced to bet my house, meaning Adam's house. Is the answer different?
Well, look, man, it's Cam Ward. Both sides. I don't support, making someone lose their house. So I'm going to go sense of urgency for both of us. And yeah, it's Cam Ward to me.
Okay. TD on Twitter said the trade talk is real. There's a chance it could happen. If they stay, it's Ward undoubtedly. So again, TD, I think we all know this. You all know what I think of TD. You guys know that I think TD is plugged in. You know TD is plugged in. And it's not like TD doesn't have good information. And it's not like we all don't know that TD was just boots on the ground in Indianapolis for a week straight, where every single important football decision maker of the Titans was also on the ground in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is not a very big place, especially downtown Indianapolis. So he thinks it's Ward. Again, if they make the pick, he thinks they're taking Ward. He's got Shedeur Sanders number one on his board. He thinks they're taking Ward. If they don't trade it and his house was on the line and Adam's house was on the line, he'd bet it'd be Cam Ward. And if I was the GM of the Tennessee Titans, I'd want TD to think that too. Now, you all know that I am not especially keen on drafting Cam Ward with the first pick. Because, again, while I think Cam Ward has legitimate first-round talent, I don't think that he is a franchise quarterback. I don't think he'll ever be that. I think he'll be an okay player, but he will not be a franchise quarterback, and I'm trying to take a franchise quarterback with the first overall pick. But this is draft season. And what I'm actually going to do with the pick, again, if I was GM, isn't what I'd want TD to know. See, here's the deal. I don't think that there's a chance I'll be GM of the Titans one day, but anything is possible, especially in our society where people go from doing jobs on TV and on radio to becoming very, very important very quickly. If I was GM, you wouldn't hear a word out of my mouth about Sam Darnold. We got people texting into the text line saying, enough about Sam Darnold, Jared. You wouldn't hear a word out of my mouth about Sam Darnold if I was GM. And if I was GM, you wouldn't know that, hey, I think Cam Ward's got some talent, and I could take him with the 17th pick, but I can't take him first overall. You wouldn't know that. I'd want TD to know, oh, man, this guy, he's going to draft Cam Ward. I love TD. But if I'm GM, I don't care about TD having good information. I want TD and everybody else to have the information that I want them to have. And while it's not mutually exclusive for the information that is good information to also be the information that I want you to have, in this case, it's probably beneficial for those not to be the same. Because as far as this draft is concerned, there are three players at the top of it. And again, I think Shedeur Sanders is essentially a TV prospect. I do not believe that NFL teams view Shedeur Sanders in the same light that they view the other three: Ward, Hunter, and Carter. I think they look at Travis Hunter and they say, this guy is legit. He is a top-of-the-line corner and would go in the top 10 of almost any draft. The problem is he's a corner, and how much better do you get by having an elite corner? Look, I'd love to have Sauce Gardner or Patrick Surtain or Derek Stingley, but I don't think the Texans win because they have Derek Stingley. I think they win because they have C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. That difference in position matters. So Hunter has the talent, but he's not at a premium position, so it's hard to get excited about that. Carter, I don't know if Carter has like the generational talent, but Carter does have legitimate number one talent. And so that could get teams excited, but Carter's hurt. That foot injury undoubtedly scares me, and it wouldn't surprise me if that foot injury scares others. The lust in the draft, the get you sucked in to mortgage your future to get my pick is Cam Ward. That's it. The only guy that's available in this year's draft that could get an owner to go to his general manager who says, look, Cam Ward is the 12th best player on our board. Who's the top quarterback? Ward. Do you think Ward could develop into a superstar quarterback? I mean, I guess he could. A lot would have to go, right? But he would make the trade. There's one guy. That's Cam Ward. And if you think it's stupid, the idea of an owner walking in saying, make the trade, get my guy. Carolina did it 2 years ago for an undersized quarterback. Guy walked right in there, told everybody, make the trade. And that's why they suck. So, again, when it comes to this first pick, I know what I think of Cam Ward. Right now, I'd be doing everything. I would be, if I was the general manager of the Tennessee Titans and the owner came to me, the only person I have to tell the truth to, the owner came to me and she said, Jared, what are we going to do with the first pick? I would say, Miss Amy, we are going like hell to try to trade this pick. But right now, we need everybody to think that we love Cam Ward because we need the Giants, who are desperate because their general manager and head coach are on the hottest of seats in the toughest media market. And so we need people to think that we love this quarterback and that it would take a freaking haul for them to be able to get up there and make that trade. We need the Jets, who are so stupid. And Woody Johnson might just walk in there with a 17-year-old son, watch a SportsCenter highlight, and want to draft Cam Ward to think that we're going to take Cam Ward. We want to take advantage of these teams. The owner of the Raiders, have you seen how he cuts his hair? Clearly, he's not very bright. And hell, Tom Brady, what's he know? He's never scouted players before. So we want everybody to think that we're going to take Cam Ward. Even though deep down inside, I think Sam Darnold's going to end up being the better quarterback. That Sam Darnold is right now better than Cam Ward will ever be. So in this case, I don't see anybody bloodlusting for Travis Hunter. I think the lust on Abdul Carter goes down with the foot injury. Not only is it a foot injury, he's got 2 injuries now. The guy that is so ripe to blow up, to get somebody to go all in for, to take advantage of a team whose general manager can't evaluate players or whose owner doesn't know their tush from last Thursday is Cam Ward. And the way to get the best return on Cam Ward is to have everybody think that I'm going to take him. It's to have everybody think that I love him. Now, again, I don't know what TD is basing it off of, but he believe TD is very plugged in. He was talking to us the day of the draft, the first round, about Tavondre Sweat in the second round. TD has good information, and I'm not saying this is bad information. I'm just saying, if I was general manager, even though this isn't what I believe, that's the exact information he and every other reporter whom I deem worth the audience would have. That I love Cam Ward. Because then I can maximize my trade. 615-737-1025, which is the phone number if you want to weigh in. That is 615-737-1025 here on the program. And here's the other thing that pumping up Cam Ward to the media does. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
First overall pick. We haven't seen Abdul Carter. We did not see Genty. We are not seeing Cam Ward or Shedeur throw, and Travis Hunter didn't work out the defensive backs. First overall pick, so much weighing on you guys holding the keys. Have you at least started having conversations where we're going to be narrowing down position or maybe even player at this point in the process?
It's still early, Peter, but it's a process. So we have this one touch point here. There'll be pro days that we go to, private workouts, 30-day visits. So we're going to take the entire process. This is an important pick here, number one pick in the draft. So we're not taking that lightly. So this is part of the process here. Kind of like phase one for us here.
In the quarterback position, we'll see. Obviously, we can go free agency, we can go trade. Those conversations, I'm sure, are being had as well.
We've had those discussions, but once again, we need to gather more information here over the next month. So we'll get to sit down. It's the first time really we've got to sit down with some of these guys that we haven't seen before. So, it was good to get them in the interview process here this week, even though some of them didn't work out. But we'll have time to visit with them here over the next month.
There you go. That was Mike Borgonzi, Titans general manager. So, again, there's a lot of sentiment that the Titans are taking Cam Ward with the first overall pick. Dan Orlovsky said this morning that he is where he almost was on Joe Burrow. He actually said that, where he said he wouldn't trade the pick no matter what. That's where he's getting with Cam Ward and the Titans, which is wild. But that's actually a good thing. That's actually a good thing. Can we get that Orlovsky cut in? This, again, was this morning. They were all sitting around the table. Again, the combine is still technically going on, but for all intents and purposes, the combine is over. And so now it's kind of reacting to what came out of the combine. And Dan Orlovsky sitting at the table, and he couldn't wait to fire this takeoff. Here's what he said.
If I'm the Tennessee Titans, I am not moving off the number one pick, and I am drafting Cam Ward. Years ago, Joe Burrow was coming out, and there was the conversation, should the Bengals trade back? And I was adamant, I don't care what anyone offers you. I'm not that high right there, but I'm not that far off from it. That's the starting point.
Here's why I love this. Here's why pumping Cam Ward up to the media is important. As little power as the media actually has, it manages fan expectation, and not just for your fans. So if I'm the Titans, I'm making sure that everyone knows just how great Cam Ward is, so that one of these quarterback needy teams and their fans won't just be okay with giving up great capital to get the pick, but will demand that they give up great capital to get the pick, which is where I kind of circle the two New York teams. Dan Graziano said over the weekend, both the Jets and the Giants have reached out to Tennessee about the number one overall pick. Again, what does that mean? What's their level of interest? Are they just kicking the tires? Who knows? But I think about both New York teams, and I think about how sensitive they are to the media. And I think about the fact that, again, these guys want you to think that the football people, the coach and the general manager and the assistant GMs, and they all lock themselves in the office and they all watch the tape, and everybody can have their opinions, but they don't matter compared to the team. And in some of these cases, that's the truth. In Philadelphia, Howie Roseman does not give a rat's ass what the local media thinks. Jeffrey Lurie does not care what the local media thinks. And I think that served them very well. In LA, they don't care what their fans think. They don't have any fans. But you can't say that in New York. In New York, they very much care what the fans think. And that's where I want to take advantage of these two teams. You think it is incredible to think that, hey, Dan Orlovsky, a nobody in the NFL, an average game broadcast analyst, and a hot taker on TV, saying, I'm kind of close. I'm kind of as close on Cam Ward as I was on Joe Burrow. That actually matters, because these owners don't lock themselves in the room and watch tape all day, but they do watch TV. They do listen to the radio. Oh, if I was Mike Borgonzi, I'd be thinking to myself, and I'm dead serious, if I was Mike Borgonzi, and I think I have a better sense for how the media works than the people that actually are in the league. Like, I don't think Chad Brinker knows how the media works the way that I know how the media works, because that's what I do for a living. But if I were the Titans, I'd be sitting around having a discussion right now about how do we get them to scream on WFAN in New York. How do we convince them to scream that Cam Ward is the guy and that the Giants better do whatever it takes in order to get up and get Cam Ward? How do we do it? That would be the discussion I'd be having right now, because that matters. Mike and the Mad Dog, the big show on WFAN in New York for all those years, had a documentary, came out about 6 or 7 years ago. They did a 30 for 30 on Mike and the Mad Dog. Very popular in New York. It was not popular across the country as far as the 30 for 30 itself was. And in that, John Mara, the owner of the Giants, talked about how his dad would be listening to WFAN in the car. The owner of the Giants. You don't think he listens? So if you, again, find a plant one way or another, he'd never do it. But God, if you could get Andy Reid, if you were Borgonzi, you could get Andy Reid to call one of those hosts on the side to say, oh, man, let me tell you this Ward. Man, I'll tell you, he's everything. If we didn't have Patrick, we'd be trying to get him. Oh, my God. Because then that host couldn't wait to run on the radio and say, I know this. Andy Reid thinks that he's the best. Like, that's the kind of stuff you do. It gets to owners. You can't unring the bell. And in New York, you've got two stupid owners that are desperate at the quarterback position. It's perfect. So I would be pumping the tires on Cam Ward. Again, I think Cam Ward is fine. I think he's more like the 16th pick in the draft than he is the first pick in the draft. But man, if you could get the Giants to give up next year's first, if you could get the Giants to give up 34 or 33 or whatever the hell it is, if you could give them, oh my God, that's how you rebuild your team. And last year, the Giants told you, they showed their hand. If they think that this guy is a franchise quarterback, they'll give up next year's first-round pick to go get him, because they tried to give up this year's first-round pick last year to go get Drake May. So while it's stupid to sit there and say, man, I want all these people in the media just banging the drum for Cam Ward because it raises the stock price, it really doesn't. It does matter. One texter says, I'm all in on Sam Darnold. 4 over 160 and 100 guaranteed is a bargain. Too many what-ifs with these two quarterbacks. You can't start either of them on day one. You absolutely can start Ward on day one. Sanders, I don't know. I don't think Sanders is very good. That's just me. One texter says, Jared, with his bad as the Titans have been talent evaluation over the 8 years with any team, even believe their evaluations. I don't know what that means. So I'm going to translate this into what might be English. Jared is as bad as the Titans have been in terms of talent evaluation over the last 8 years. So I don't understand the even believe their evaluations. But I'll say this. I've had my misses. Everybody's going to have their misses. You know, the Anthony Richardson thing, like I can tell you right now, he's a bust. I'm not sure I blame him for that as much as Indy's done everything wrong in order for him to be successful. And I think Indy's continuing that, saying we're going to bring in competition for him. But we don't. Again, I've certainly had my misses. Last year, I was all in on Bowers, and he's an AP first team All Pros. Feel pretty good about that one. One texter says, if we don't draft Ward or Sanders, who in the hell is going to play quarterback? Sam Darnold can play quarterback. Aaron Rodgers can play quarterback. Daniel Jones can play quarterback. I wouldn't sign Kirk Cousins, but he can play quarterback. You don't take a guy just because, well, who else is going to play quarterback? You don't do that. JD says, I agree with you, Jared, about the stupidity of these owners. But we, talking about the Titans, have one of those owners too. Let me say this. If Amy cannot control herself, and the sentiment that I have received, which again is very fluid, and I don't trust a thing that the Titans say they're going to do. Because the Titans are like your friend that vows going on a diet every Monday, only to see them grabbing an eclair out of the trash on Wednesday. But I believe Amy is kind of trying to stay out of football matters. And she trusts Brinker. I don't know why. She trusts Brinker, and now he's in charge, and she just stays, hey, just call me, how much it'll take, but I don't want to be involved day to day. Even though that's exactly what she did want to do a couple years ago. I don't know. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So there is a report on Shedeur Sanders, but it is the context, or I guess I should say the repudiation of the report, that I have got. We got to get to this. The Shedeur Sanders thing, we got to do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
It does sound like in the interviews, Cam Ward has been, I would say exactly what the teams hope. Does seem, based on the conversations I've had with general managers, top evaluators, that it is Cam Ward right now and everyone else. I'm not saying he's going to go number one, but it does seem, as it stands now, that if a quarterback goes number one, it is likely him, knowing that we haven't seen him do anything at the Senior Bowl, didn't see him do anything here. His pro day obviously looms large. After that, there's some questions, though. I mean, Shedeur Sanders seems like he acquitted himself well in interviews this week, too. His overall knowledge was good. He, of course, has talked about the change in culture. He's had 2 different places, certainly in contention to be QB2, but I'm not sure that we are there yet. Jackson Dart and press teams as well threw really nicely behind us. Quinn Ewers wasn't asked to do a ton in college. I know teams were sort of like wondering why. You can see the way he threw out there today. He's got the arm talent. He's also got the confidence, maybe a little more of a quiet guy, but got the confidence. It seems to me to be more up in the air as far as who is QB2, who is QB3, and that process is going to shake out over the next couple weeks. Wouldn't be surprised to see another in the top 5. Wouldn't be surprised to see another there in the top 10. Still a long way to go.
That was Ian Rappaport. Again, Shedeur Sanders is more over here with the Jackson Darts, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shucks than he is over here with Cam Ward. In fact, there was an ESPN.com piece Matt Miller did where he talked to people inside the league and had them rank where they had all these quarterbacks coming out over the last couple of years. And Shedeur Sanders, of the 20 first-round quarterbacks, of the 21 first-round quarterbacks, however long ago this goes back, like maybe to 2020, he's ranked number 20. He's ranked number 20. Only Kenny Pickett is ranked behind him. So have you seen this report, Ian, from Josina Anderson?
No, I missed this one.
So I don't even know where Josina Anderson works anymore. She used to work for ESPN for a long time. Then she was at CBS for a little bit. Now, I don't exactly know where she works anymore, but that's her business, not mine. Josina Anderson puts out this long tweet that's kind of a report and kind of Josina Anderson pissed off about the fact that she has to report this about Shedeur Sanders. Josina Anderson puts out there, quote, "I am disappointed to hear that a quarterback's coach from a team drafting in the top 7 referred to Shedeur Sanders as coming off brash and arrogant in his team interview and making his assessment known to a number of people, per source. I'm purposely not naming the team as to not directly call the team out. I'm just sharing that this coach's personal assessment is the direct opposite from how Sanders came across to many reporters in his press conference with the media at the Combine. Sanders appeared to go out of his way to acknowledge multiple media members, regardless if they were recognizable or not. He seemed cordial, polite, witty, thoughtful, along with being confident, as many athletes are. Alternately, these observations were distinctly different from how another QB prospect came off to some in the media last year in Indy. According to league sources, said QB coach seems to have issues with the culture of athletes who have broad fame and financial success before entering the NFL, and in their opinions, appears to them to have a problem with certain athletes. I'll leave it at that. This is how pre-draft evaluations can get jacked because of evaluators who don't seemingly possess the discernment to detect intangible traits that are connected to the will and drive to win without being a stat or delineated in an analytics report. He's literally Deion Sanders' son, and despite growing up different from most, seemed fairly grounded. Hopeful any potential biases towards the culture, Josina puts in quotation marks, are being checked at the door as not to unduly impact stock and business. The modern-day college athlete is evolving, as is the scale of business and opportunities surrounding them before entering the professional leagues. Adaptation sounds necessary and not just for Sanders." Josina followed up with another tweet saying, "This coach is also not in favor of getting him. That's what prompted my post because there are other folks in the building who vehemently disagree with that assessment. The comments, all of which I did not report, were over the top." So then I said, okay, where is Josina Anderson getting this quarterback's coach saying, so I did a search for Shedeur Sanders brash and arrogant. because that's what supposedly the coach called him. Apparently, the report comes from Josina Anderson. So here's what happened. Josina Anderson, who, again, I don't even know who she works for at this point in time. Josina Anderson heard that a quarterback's coach whose team is picking in the top 7, so that could be you, Cleveland, the Giants, New England, Jacksonville, the Raiders, or the Jets, that somebody's quarterback's coach, who's kind of an old school guy, so it's probably not your guys with Bo Hardegree, but that somebody, said that Shedeur came off as brash and arrogant in his meeting. He might have done that. And she puts out this lengthy post basically announcing to the world that this quarterback's coach thought he was brash and arrogant in their meeting, to say that's bullcrap because Shedeur met with the media at the combine and seemed very, very likable. Can I ask where the defense of Will Levis was when all this was coming out a couple years ago? Again, when Josina Anderson is putting words like that in quotations, I have to ask, are you reporting or are you not reporting? Because it sounds like you're reporting what this quarterback's coach said, which is a reporter's job. If the quarterback's coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, so that would be a team picking in the top 7, if that quarterback's coach went to a reporter and said, yeah, we met with Sanders, we think he's a tool bag. Well, I hate to say it, but again, a reporter's job is to report. And if you want to report the information, you have to report. I talked to a quarterback's coach that met with Shedeur Sanders in the top 7, and they say he's a total tool bag. That's just, again, you're reporting. But it sounds like she's reporting that this coach didn't like Shedeur Sanders, thought he was immature, arrogant, brash, whatever, and is basically just trashing the coach. She's like, I'm not going to name them publicly. Well, you shouldn't name them publicly unless they went on the record with you as a reporter, and you know that. And the reason why I was kind of giggling while I was reading that long dissertation when it came to Shedeur Sanders was because all I could think about, and this is kind of a throwback, Ian, I don't know if you remember this, about 10 years ago, do you remember when the Rams drafted Michael Sam?
Kind of.
So Michael Sam was the pass rusher out of Missouri. He had come out as being gay prior to the draft. The Rams drafted him
When
in the
Fisher
7th
was
round.
there, right?
Yep, and he and his boyfriend kissed on TV, and they stuffed each other's faces into the cake and all that kind of stuff. And Josina Anderson was covering the Rams in training camp, and she had a report on SportsCenter where she was like, I've talked to some of the players about Michael Sam, who apparently, according to my sources, waits for some people to get done showering so that he showers by himself. But I talked to so-and-so on the record who said they have not been keeping track of such things. Back to you. Like, it's so funny because, again, she's reporting about the guy's shower habits. But now she's going to say, because some quarterback's coach is saying in Indianapolis that he doesn't like Shedeur Sanders, she's going to go out there and talk about how dare this quarterback's coach think this in this meeting that I wasn't a part of, and I could out them if I wanted to. And I got to tell you, there's a part of me that thinks part of the reason why people don't come out and say that Shedeur Sanders, what they think, is because they don't want to be shamed and called racist. That if you think Shedeur Sanders is over the top and you say it, that then you'll get people coming after you calling you racist. When nobody would have said that about Will Levis a couple years ago. Phil Simms said Will Levis is taking shirtless selfies. He's like, I don't like it. And I'm like, I get it. But again, I think there's kind of a fear here. Like Josina Anderson turns this whole thing of, there's a chance that this quarterback's coach, his team might just love Shedeur Sanders. And he's going around Indianapolis trashing him so that people will think, yeah, the Raiders hate Shedeur Sanders. So that the Raiders can sit there on draft day and draft Shedeur Sanders. But instead, she turns it into this whole like, how dare that quarterback's coach have a different impression of somebody than I do? And that's the kind of stuff pissed me off. Mike from PA says, between the lines, she's trying to call this coach a racist. I know. That's the thing that bothers me. Like, not everything is a social attack. This is football. I'm sorry. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care what their color is, or I don't care if it's a woman playing quarterback. I don't care if they're gay. Can you read the blitz? Like, that's all I care. Can you lead the team? That is all I care about. But if you really believe something, like if you sat in that meeting and you thought Shedeur Sanders was brash and arrogant, why would you not share your opinion? Isn't that the point of these meetings? All right, more of your phones. 615-737-1025. Boy, there's going to be a lot of yelling and screaming about Shedeur Sanders' quote-unquote fall after the combine, even though he didn't throw a single pass, which, again, I don't think he's falling. I just think that he never was with these NFL teams where the media perceived him, but that's a different discussion. 615-737-1025. We'll go to your phones. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
For those who don't know, he started his career at Incarnate Word and went to Washington State, well-traveled, and then this year, of course, was a Heisman finalist with a monster year at the U. Do you agree with that? Do you see it as clear-cut Ward? Because I can tell you that on his big board, Mel Kiper has Shedeur ahead of Cam Ward.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking to a couple teams last night, over the last couple of days, people just fell in love with Cam Ward, the ones that talked to him, and the way his teammates talked about him in other interviews. Everything Dan said, and then you layer in the intangibles.
The character stuff
is really off the charts. So taking nothing away from anybody else, I think there's a massive line from Cam Ward to anybody, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. And the other thing I would just say about him as a player, Greeny, 74 plays of 20 yards or more. That talks about his ability and the explosiveness. So when you want to talk about the ceiling is really high for him.
There you go. That was Mike Tannenbaum, former NFL general manager on ESPN this morning, saying Cam Ward clearly number one. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is falling. I don't think Cam Ward is rising. I think Cam was the only first-round quarterback considered by most people. And again, I go back to what Blake Bedingfield wrote at paulkarski.com on January 6th, which was first-round grade on Ward, though it was a mid-first-round grade, and a second-round grade on Sanders. And I don't think that's changed. Let's go to your phones. As promised, your phone lines are by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Mike in Gallatin has been waiting patiently and is up next. Mike, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. So I am looking to trade the pick, and if we go with the pick up a free agent quarterback strategy, I don't understand how realistic half of these online random trade offers work. People, I'm assuming, are just going to a website and just throwing stuff on a wall or going on Madden and clicking on things. But for you personally, I see the Titans' realistic trade suitors, and I know this could be anybody. I'd pick 2, 3, 5, 6, and we'll throw the Cowboys in at 12 because I heard a report about the Cowboys maybe being interested in it too.
Why is Jacksonville at 5? Why is Jacksonville at 5 a legitimate trade?
6, my fault. 6 and 7, my fault. I'm talking about the Jets and the Raiders.
Sure.
For you, as you continue to work your way back from those picks, hypothetically, how much more are you expecting from that lower tier team to give you so that you could be enticed enough to want to do that? Because again, I'm sitting here thinking that at 7 or 12, we might not get the big ticket player, but are we at a point right now where any of these quote unquote big ticket players would help us as much as a solid pass rusher that is not Abdul Carter or a right tackle that's going to do the job?
So here's what I'll tell you, Mike. Thank you for your call. I think it's a good call. So the player I love is Matthew Golden. That is the player I freaking love. And I think I just saw a mock draft that came out after the combine that has him, I don't know where the Seahawks are picking. I think they're picking like 16th. And they have Matthew Golden at 16 to the Seahawks. Now, I think Matthew Golden's going in the top 10. I think Matthew Golden is going ahead of Ted McMillan because Matthew Golden can run. And I love Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. So let's use the 7th overall pick as an example, because there are a couple of players who would be available with the 7th overall pick who I absolutely love. Golden is one of them. Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, is another. So let's use them as the example. I don't know enough about Mbu or whatever, the tackle out of Missouri. I don't know enough about him. But let's just use Golden and Warren, 2 guys I know and 2 guys I like. In order to move down from 1 to 7, the trade chart says that the Jets would have to give up 7, 42, 92, which is a 3rd rounder, their 1st round pick next year, their 2nd round pick next year, and their 1st round pick in 2027. Well, if the Jets are willing to do that, then I would drive Cam Ward to New York. What's more realistic is that the Jets call and they offer up 7, next year's 1st, 42, next year's 2nd, and next year's 3rd. That is technically a bad trade. I'd probably do that. Like, if I don't love Cam Ward and thus they're going to move up to go get him, that 1st rounder next year is probably going to have some serious value to it. So I think I probably do that trade. And then whichever player I like the best, from that 2nd tier of players that is not going to include Mason Graham, it's not going to include Hunter and Carter and the whatever. Now I can take Matthew Golden with the 7th overall pick, and I'm cool with it. Like, because I think Matthew Golden's going to be a stud, but I still have next year's first from the Jets, 42, next year's second from the Jets, and next year's third from the Jets. Like, I still got firepower off of this pick that even if Golden doesn't work out, one of those players is surely going to be pretty darn good, I would think. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's all about knowing your board and then hoping that your board is somewhat accurate. And I love that Matthew Golden. I freaking love him. One texter says, Shedeur Sanders sucks. Jackson Dart should go number 1. These are the takes that make me love lying season. LOL. So is the texter saying that the Jackson Dart thing is a lie, or is the texter saying that everybody in the league knows that Jackson Dart should go high and they're just making up Sanders stuff? That I'm not sure. I will say this. I had a college coach who spent all season, this is an SEC coach, who spent all season telling me he likes Jackson Dart the best. And he is an SEC coach. But he didn't back Milroe, didn't back Ewers. The guy he backed was Dart. Dart apparently performed very well at the combine. And I think it was Mike Tannenbaum said that he's going in the first round, in his opinion. One texter in the text line says, I hope some other team besides the Titans gets Sam Darnold. We need our own young quarterback. You can't just make a quarterback good. You can't just say, if neither of these guys are good, if none of these guys are good, you can't just, like the 2022, the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, Matt Corral, Bailey Zappi, that group is an example of if there's not a quarterback, you can't create one. 615-737-1025. It is time for the free agent board. And our free agent board at quarterback is ready to go. So if we don't like Sanders or we don't like Ward, or before we get to Sanders, before we get to Ward, it's the free agent board. And we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And let's give something away, because why not? We're all in a good mood over here. At 615-737-1025, be caller 5, and you will win a pair of tickets to see Stained. It's been a while. To see Stained and Breaking Benjamin at Bridgestone Arena on Sunday, April 27th. Good luck with that. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. And it is time for a tradition now on the Stillman and Company show. Ian, this is our second year of doing this, so I think we can say this is a tradition.
Makes sense to me, yeah.
The free agent board. If you are looking at the stream, I have right here the free agent board where you can see right here, it's got quarterbacks and there's all these different colors and there's all kinds of, so we have with each player, we have their name, their age. With the quarterbacks, which is where we will be today, we have their quarterback rating, what Pro Football Focus thinks their contract should be. The green is what they do well. The blue is just facts. Red is bad. We take all the numbers and all the analytics and all the everything, and we load them up onto the free agent board, and then we watch a little tape. And then we come up with kind of the order with which we want people. It should be noted that 1 week from today, the legal tampering period will be upon us, and we will be well into free agency. So it's time to get the free agent board right. I know everyone's hot for the draft because the combine was it, but free agency comes first. So, without further ado, all week we will go through the Titans' needs. Quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, tackle, right guard, backup offensive line, though that'll probably be part of the tackle board, edge rusher, inside backer, and safety. And if you're looking right here again at the stream, you can see that I've got the quarterbacks, we got the receivers. I did not do the work on T. Higgins because he figured he was going to get tagged, and he did. We got the tackles, etc. So it is time now to reveal the Titans free agent board, the Stillman and Company free agent board at the quarterback position. And this is not just free agents. This also involves trades. This also involves potential, other, guys could be released kind of things, but potential available veteran players. And we start at the top of the free agent board.
Number 1.
Sam Darnold, Minnesota, age 28 next season. Pro Football Focus thinks Sam Darnold will have a 3-year contract at $41 million per year, $70 million guaranteed, and $123.75 million total. Here is what Sam Darnold does well. He played in all 17 games in 2024 plus one playoff game and has not missed a game due to injury since 2021. Sam Darnold was named to the 2024 Pro Bowl on the first ballot. He was 5th in the NFL in passing yards, 5th in the NFL in touchdowns in 2024. He was 14-3 as a starter in 2024 and 4-2 as a starter in 2022. He had 33 big-time throws, 3rd in the National Football League this past season, tied with Justin Herbert of the LA Chargers. And his 5.6% big-time throw, which means 5.6% of the time he has a big-time throw, was 6th and ahead of Joe Burrow at 5.3. Sam Darnold also led the NFL with 11 passes being thrown while he was hit. So 11 times he was dropping back to pass, he was hit as the ball was coming out. The things, again, just to note, his QBR of 60.4 was the highest of his career, and he did have a quarterback rating of 92.6 in 2022, and his PFF grade of 80.7 was 13th in the NFL. Now the bad. Sam Darnold, 17-32 as a starting NFL quarterback from 2018 to 2021, and his 24 turnover-worthy throws were tied for 1st in the NFL with Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield. Sam Darnold also had a 3.6% turnover-worthy play percentage, which means 3.6% of the times he went to throw, it was a turnover-worthy play, which was tied with Matthew Stafford for 3rd in the NFL. He also had a postseason grade of 54.9. He was terrible in the postseason game. He also had the 3rd highest time to throw in the NFL. Jalen Hurts was number 1 with the most time to throw. Lamar Jackson 2. PFF ranked their offensive line 18th. It's hard to believe that the Titans will have a better than 18th offensive line next year. A contract for Sam Darnold, I think 4 years, $164 million. That is $41 million per year, 80 guaranteed. And he's number one at the top of the board.
Number 2.
I was surprised after going through everybody's info. Number 2 is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers started all 17 games in 2024. However, we all know that he only played in one game in 2023. Aaron did not miss a start between 2018 and 2022. Aaron also had a 28-11 touchdown to interception ratio last year. Aaron had a QB rating of 90.4, and his 12 turnover-worthy plays for the season and a 1.8 turnover-worthy play percentage was 4th in the NFL. 26 big-time throws last year was 9th in the NFL, and Aaron had 39 drops by New York Jet receivers, which led the NFL. 9.6% of Aaron Rodgers' passes were dropped. So Aaron threw for all those yards last year. Aaron threw for touchdowns last year. Aaron did all these, and that's with the Jet receivers dropping 10% of the passes. What Aaron does, so-so. 2 fourth-quarter comebacks last year. I believe one of those was at Nissan Stadium. He had a 77.8 PFF grade, and he only had 16 scrambles in 17 games, but considering he's coming off the torn Achilles, that's not that bad. Only 13 scrambles in 22 and 17 scrambles in 21 when he was the league MVP. The problems with Aaron, while Aaron did throw 28 touchdowns and 11 picks last year, his career average is 34-8. So certainly below the career average. His 48.0 QBR was the second lowest of his career. He was 41.3 in 2022. And in the last 2 years as a starter, take 2023 out when Aaron got hurt, take that out, Aaron 13-21 as a starter in 2022 and 2024. And he was only the 19th highest rated passer in 24. My contract for Aaron Rodgers would be 2 years, $64 million, 32 guaranteed. So we're guaranteeing Aaron Rodgers the first year at $32 million, 2 years, $64 million. That would be my second veteran choice at quarterback.
Number 3.
Russell Wilson, age 36 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russell Wilson made 15 starts in 2023, which he got benched at the end of that season, but I was surprised his 2023 season wasn't that bad. Russell had 16 touchdowns and 5 picks last year and 26-8 in 2023. Russell led the NFL in 2023 with fourth quarter comebacks. Pretty amazing, right? Sean Payton wanted to get rid of him, and he still led the league in fourth quarter comebacks. 24 big-time throws last year in 11 games. A 6.3 big-time throw percentage is third in the National Football League. And Russell takes care of the ball. 1.6% turnover-worthy plays, tied for second in the NFL with Lamar Jackson. And his big-time throw percentage was 7th in the NFL in 2023. Russell is 13-3 as a starter in the last 2 seasons. He had a 79.5 PFF grade last year, so right there with Aaron Rodgers. And he was tied for 13th in that same turnover-worthy play category in 2023 with Josh Allen. Here's the bad when it comes to Russell. Only started 11 games last year due to a calf injury. 2022 was a disaster with career lows in touchdown, rating, and QBR. He had only 1 fourth quarter comeback last year, and his QBR of 51.3 was his third lowest of his career. Now, it was better than the last 2 years before that, but again, still third lowest in his career. If I were to sign Russell Wilson, who I'm not a huge fan of, it would be for 1 year and $20 million.
Number 4.
Daniel Jones. I actually initially had Daniel Jones higher on the list, especially after Rich Gannon was kind of pumping his tires at the Super Bowl for Daniel Jones. It's not very good for Daniel Jones. The good news on Daniel Jones, 2.2% of turnover-worthy plays last season. That's pretty good. Doesn't turn the ball over. 65 scrambles when healthy in 2022, and 10% of his passes were dropped, which again, Aaron was 9.6. Daniel Jones last year, 10% of his passes in New York were dropped, and his QBR in 2022 of 62.9 was 6th in the NFL. That's all the good stuff on Daniel Jones. Here's the rest. 10 games last year in 2024, he was released. He has a QB, a career quarterback rating of 84.3, which is nah, and a PFF grade this season of 72.0. He had a slightly higher PFF passing grade than he did in his best season, which was 2022. And here's the bad news. Career record of 24, 44, and 1. 6 games played in 2023 with a torn ACL. 10 touchdowns and 13 interceptions for Daniel Jones in his last 16 games. 27th in the NFL with a 67.5 passing grade and only 7 big-time throws last year, 36 in the NFL. In his good year in 2022, Daniel Jones had only 8 graded big-time throws and 21 turnover-worthy plays. Daniel Jones, again, 65 scrambles in 2022, 16 scrambles post-ACL in 2024. If I were to sign Daniel Jones, it would be for a bridge at best at 1 year and $9 million.
Number 5.
Justin Fields. Justin Fields is 26 years old. He has a career rating below Daniel Jones at 83.9. Pro Football Focus, by the way, thinks he's 1 year, $11 million. Fields was 4-2 as a starter last year, 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. 21 big-time throws in 2023. That's 17th in the NFL. And his 5.5 percentage of big-time throws in 2023 was 10th in the league. He also only 2.8 turnover-worthy plays percentage, which was the best of his career. Now, here's just kind of the minutia, just the average with Justin Fields. 10 games in 2024, only 6 starts because he was the backup. He has a PFF grade of 71 and only 6 big-time throws last year, but again, only in 6 starts. 16 turnover-worthy plays as a starter in 23, 11th in the NFL, and 18th in percentage. And I was a little surprised that his 43 scrambles weren't that high as far as the NFL was concerned. That was 4th in 2023. He was penalized last year 4 times in 6 starts. I don't know, how does a quarterback get penalized 4 times? And then that's the bad. Fields was injured in 2023, only started 13 games. He missed 4 games with a hand dislocation. He has a career record of 14-30. Bad. And this was crazy to me. Aaron had 2 fourth-quarter comebacks last year. Justin Fields has 2 fourth-quarter comebacks in his entire career. That's awful. So he's down the list.
Number 6.
Number 6, I guess, is Kirk Cousins. I don't know. I would not sign 6, nor would I sign 7, but Kirk Cousins is number 6. Let's start with the good on Kirk Cousins. Nothing. There is not a single green on Kirk Cousins. Again, I'm putting this up on the stream. Not a single green up there. So here's the average for Kirk Cousins, who's 37 years old. He started 14 games last year coming off of an Achilles injury, but he was benched. He had 18 touchdowns and 5 interceptions before getting hurt in 2023. He had 3 fourth-quarter comebacks last year, and his PFF grade was 74.3. Here's the bad. He started 8 games in 2023 because of a torn Achilles. He had the worst career QBR at 50.4, and his 18 touchdowns and 16 interceptions last year were awful. He led the NFL with those 16 interceptions in spite of the fact that he was benched for basically a third of the season. He had only 13 big-time throws in 14 games last year. Drake May of the Patriots had more big-time throws last year than Kirk Cousins. And in his last full season, Kirk Cousins had 31 in 2022 with Minnesota. In spite of his 13 big-time throws, Kirk Cousins had 24 turnover-worthy plays last year, which led the NFL tied with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. And he had the worst turnover-worthy percentage at 4.6. Will Levis, by the way, 4.4. He had 3 scrambles last year, which is the worst. I'm not interested in Kirk Cousins. He's done.
Number 7.
Mac Jones. Again, he's got nothing good to write about. He started 7 games last year, after beginning the year as the backup. He had 8 big-time throws in those 7 games and a 2.9 big-time throw percentage and a 3.0 percentage of turnover-worthy plays, which is 8th in the NFL. The bad, 2-5 as a starter, so he beat the Titans twice. Congratulations to him. Terrible QBR, 39.8 last year, 8 touchdowns, 8 picks, 6.4 yards per attempt, 10 turnover-worthy plays and only 7 starts, 28th in the NFL per PFF in-game in 2023, and 11th in big-time throws with 27. He was behind Josh Dobbs with the 11 big-time throws. He was 27th in the league with 11 big-time throws. I'd give him $4 million to be the backup, and that might be generous. But that's the board right there. Darnold, Aaron is number 2, Russell is number 3, Jones, again, I don't want to, is number 4, Fields 5, and then Cousins and Jones, I'm not interested. And that's your QB board. 615-737-1025. Add that to the list. 615-737-1025. We'll get into your phones. Again, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of Darnold or bust. And what is the latest on Darnold? We'll get into that. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
What is Sam Darnold? I mean, I know this is a really.
Proved he's a good starting quarterback in the NFL in the right place.
Yeah, and let's not overcomplicate it. If I'm the Vikings, I'm keeping Sam Darnold. I know the last 2 games didn't go well, but before that, we're talking about him as a potential MVP.
Okay.
And if I can have depth at the quarterback position heading into September, I'm going to do it. I understand.
But is there not a price where it's too much?
50? I'm paying. If Matt Stafford's at 40, I'm paying Sam Darnold 40. I'm not going to 50, and I'm not sure someone's going to pay him more than that. But look, guys, I love J.J. McCarthy. I saw him a ton of times at Michigan, and I think he has a great future. But if we're the Vikings and we have a chance to meaningfully compete, which we do, I am going to have depth at that position. It may cost me a position player, but Sam Darnold, minus the last 2 games, played top 10 quarterback.
Top 10 quarterback play, according to Mike T. He says he'd go to $40 million, former NFL GM. Granted, Tannenbaum wasn't the greatest general manager in the world, but he's saying he'd go to $40 million a year. He's sitting there thinking, like, why are the Vikings not interested in keeping Sam Darnold? What am I missing? And yet, the Titans, who don't have a quarterback, I just get all these, hey, sucks. Okay. Come on now. To me, he's the only guy that makes any sense. One texter into the text line, our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. By the way, I mean, I'm still trying to decide, like, we're trying to get like a feel as to whether or not they're going to tag him. I mean, we'll need to know by 3:00 tomorrow. That's the deadline. But I think the Vikings went to the combine hoping for clarity, and I'm not sure they got it. I would overpay Sam Darnold to be done at quarterback, and I do think Sam Darnold is better than Cam Ward. And, like, better than Cam Ward's probably going to be. One text says, who was Sam Darnold throwing to last year? I mean, aren't all these guys throwing to better receivers than the Titans are throwing to? Daniel Jones was throwing to Malik Neighbors. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields were throwing to Pat Freiermuth, who's much better than Chig, and George Pickens, who's better than anything the Titans have. Kirk Cousins was god-awful, and he was throwing to Drake London. So I don't understand, like, everybody has good receivers. Aaron Rodgers throwing to Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams. So all these guys are throwing to better receivers than Calvin Ridley and Nick Westbrook-Akine. The hope is, for me, is that you sign Sam Darnold, and then you go get better receivers. You get a better offensive line. You get better players. Like, you don't just, it wasn't like the Commanders just drafted Jaden Daniels and didn't go get any other players. They signed 23 free agents last year. But everybody keeps making this out to be the fact that Sam Darnold was no good and that anybody could have gone to Minnesota and had all that success. I'm sorry, Josh Dobbs didn't do that 2 years ago when Cousins got hurt. How about, I got a hard time with that. I mean, again, I don't think you're going to win 14 games next year because of the crew you have, but you can get a better team. You're supposed to go get a better team. Billy from Indiana says, if the Titans sign Sam Darnold, wouldn't that be tipping their hand about the first pick? And wouldn't they lose all leverage trying to trade it? Teams are going to assume that they're not taking a quarterback, number one, so they go with Sam in free agency. Wouldn't you agree? Well, if Chicago was willing to trade the pick 2 years ago because they were committed to Justin Fields, wouldn't you argue that that would hurt their leverage? But it didn't. Carolina traded everything in the world to get up there. Tennessee was in the same spot when John Robinson traded that pick in 2016 because they had just taken Marcus Mariota, number 2 overall. Everybody knew they weren't going quarterback. The real market, if you're willing to trade the pick, the real market is not for you versus the Giants. It's not, we'll take Cam Ward, not you. It's the Browns will take Cam Ward, not you, if you don't get to this pick. Jets, if you don't get to this pick, the Giants will take Cam Ward, not you. Raiders, if you don't get to this pick, Cam Ward will be gone. That's the point. So, Ty texted in and said, Malik Willis was the quarterback at Nissan. I replied back to Ty. I said, what? He said, you said one of Aaron Rodgers' comebacks was at Nissan Stadium in 2024. Aaron Rodgers played for the Jets last year, bud. I'm not sure I can help you in that regard. One texter says, I just watched the Cam Ward season highlights. He's pretty good. Oh, the highlights. Okay, time for our second quarterback carousel. Ian, I think we were supposed to do that on Friday, and we didn't. So, it is time for our second quarterback carousel. We go on it. We'll do it next. Where's everybody going? Post-combine, Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I absolutely love Hiller. They take great care of my home anytime I have an issue, and they should do the same for you. Nobody wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency. Most of the time, you don't know what it will cost or if it will get fixed correctly, or if someone's just trying to sell you something. You do not have that problem when you call Hiller. Their experts will solve your problems quickly, and I know that again because I use Hiller at my home. The price you're told is the price you'll actually pay with no hidden fees or surprises on your bill. Book online the way I book online at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call that face truck today.
If I'm the Tennessee Titans, I am not moving off the number 1 pick, and I'm drafting Cam Ward. Years ago, Joe Burrow was coming out, and there was the conversation, should the Bengals trade back? And I was adamant, I don't care what anyone offers you. I'm not that high right there, but I'm not that far off from it. That's the starting point.
Okay, that was Dan Orlovsky this morning on ESPN saying, just turn the card in. Just go draft Cam Ward and be done with it. If you're a fan of this show, you know that I don't necessarily agree with that. But it is time for our second QB carousel. We had our first QB carousel in which we had to put Matthew Stafford on it. We said he would stay with the Rams. This is now our second QB carousel. We know Stafford's staying. We know Carr's not going onto the market. So with that, with kind of the latest gossip coming out of the combine, let's spin the prediction model. Let's spin the wheel. And let's get going on who ends up where.
The Cleveland Browns.
Aaron Rodgers is going to be my first shot here as far as, and you must be thinking, oh, whoa, that is crazy. What are you thinking, Aaron Rodgers? I don't think Shedeur Sanders with the second pick convinces Myles Garrett to stay. I don't think Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, I don't think any of those players convinces Myles Garrett to stay. I think Aaron Rodgers convinces Myles Garrett to stay. You can sit down Myles Garrett. You can blame the Jets for why Aaron didn't win last year. You can say, we've got Jerry Jeudy. You can say, we've got receivers. We've got a running game. We've got an offensive line. You take care of the defense. Aaron takes care of the offense. He gives us a chance. Hell, we made it to the playoffs 2 years ago with Joe Flacco. Aaron's better than Joe Flacco. Aaron Rodgers to the Cleveland Browns. And Aaron will take the Cleveland gig because I don't think there'll be anybody else out there.
The New York Jets.
Boy, the Jets are in a tough spot. They don't want Aaron anymore. They can't go get Sam Darnold because they've already tried that. They can't sign Justin Fields. They can't sign Daniel Jones because he's already failed in New York. So you can't get Aaron. You can't get Darnold, and you're picking 7th. There is going to be a lot of pressure if Shedeur Sanders is on the board. There is going to be a lot of pressure on the Jets to draft Shedeur Sanders. I don't think they're going to. I think they'll go with Tyrod Taylor, and I think they'll draft Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round. And they will say, we're going to put Jalen Milroe behind Tyrod Taylor, and by midseason, Jalen Milroe will be starting, even if Jalen Milroe isn't ready for it. But Tyrod Taylor will open the year next year as the Jets quarterback, only because they just don't really have a lot of options.
The Las Vegas Raiders.
Daniel Jones will be the quarterback to start the season. I believe the Raiders will take Shedeur Sanders. I think Dion will make pleas to Brady. I think Dion will make pleas to the owner. And I think they can convince Pete Carroll to get on board with Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback and then kind of bringing Shedeur along. This will probably be a lot like when Pete got to Seattle and they signed Matt Flynn to be the quarterback and they drafted Russell Wilson and they let Russell Wilson beat him out. They'll let Shedeur Sanders beat out Daniel Jones if Shedeur Sanders can beat out Daniel Jones. I think the Raiders might trade back from 6. I think Shedeur's probably middle of the 1st round. I don't think he's top of the 1st round because I just don't think he's that good. But I think the Raiders end up with Daniel Jones and Shedeur Sanders. Daniel Jones on a bridge deal. Shedeur as a 1st-round pick. I do think he'll still go in the 1st round. Shedeur is a 1st-round pick. They'll eventually turn it over to Shedeur, but I think Pete Carroll wants to go with a veteran at the beginning, and that'd be Daniel Jones.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
I believe that Russell Wilson stays in Pittsburgh and that they will take a quarterback in this year's class. I say they take Jackson Dart in round 1. I heard Tannenbaum say on SportsCenter that Jackson Dart threw the ball well enough to go in round 1. I don't think Pittsburgh is a trade-up team, but I think Pittsburgh could bring back Russell Wilson for $20 million, and they could view him as their Tommy Maddox and Jackson Dart as their Ben Roethlisberger. We're going to take him in the 1st round. He's the 3rd best quarterback. He's got the talent. He needs to adjust to the pro game, etc. I'll go Russell stays in Pittsburgh, Jackson Dart backs him up.
The Indianapolis Colts.
Anthony Richardson will be the starting quarterback of the Colts, but at the combine, Chris Ballard said that they will bring somebody in for competition. Now, last year they had Joe Flacco as the backup, but you can't really compete in training camp while installing an offense with Joe Flacco, who stands in the pocket and doesn't move, and Anthony Richardson, whose best attributes are getting outside of the pocket and not throwing the ball. I think Justin Fields is the fit there. I think you go to Justin Fields, you offer him $10 million. Again, I think this whole thing is stupid. I thought it was stupid to play Richardson for the jump. I thought it was dumb to bench Richardson last year. And I think it's stupid to bring in Justin Fields to compete with him. But doesn't Fields seem to make the most sense? You can have that kind of wide open spread offense. Both quarterbacks are probably better running the ball than they are throwing the ball. And you can let them compete in training camp. And I still think Richardson would end up winning the job from Fields. But 1 year, $10 million for Fields, and he's the backup or he's the starter. You tell Fields, hey, you're going to have a shot to compete for this job. Richardson and Fields together in Indianapolis. Again, I don't like it, but it is. They're going to have to bring somebody in. And Fields, I just don't see a starting job out there for Fields. I don't see one of these teams saying, hey, we're going to give a starting job to Justin Fields. So this is probably as close as he can get to a starting job.
The Minnesota Vikings.
J.J. McCarthy. When the general manager comes out and says that J.J. McCarthy will be the franchise quarterback of the Vikings, that tells me year 2, J.J. McCarthy is going to play. Now, if they had signed Sam Darnold to a 2-year contract, which there is no real thing for 2-year bridge contracts, but if they had signed Sam Darnold to a 2-year contract, so let's say that instead of 1 year, $10 million, they gave Sam 2 years and $20 million. And Sam was on the books for $10 million, then I think they'd go with the status quo. JJ would back up Sam, and we'll go from there. But their options are to give Sam $40 million on the tag. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Or to sign Sam to an extension. If you sign Sam to an extension, then you trade JJ. I think their big plan long-term, the plan that was spearheaded by Kevin O'Connell, I think the entire time was J.J. McCarthy. So when it comes to Minnesota and what they're going to do right there with that pick, I think what they're going to do is they're going to believe what they believed last April, which is JJ's our guy, and we're all in behind him. And then that will allow them to take the $40 million they would have spent on Sam Darnold to spend it on their entire secondary, which apparently they have to replace. They have a one guy under contract in the secondary for next year. That's Harrison Smith, and he might retire. So J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Minnesota Vikings.
The New York Giants.
I think the Giants get bailed out by the Titans. I think it's Cam Ward. I think what's going to happen, I felt this was telegraphed from the second I read Jordan Raanan at ESPN last week, who wrote that the Giants heading into the combine had their eyes and their sights set on Shedeur Sanders. I didn't buy it. I said that means they want Cam Ward. The Giants went all in for Matthew Stafford. Rich Eisen says the Rams had agreed to the compensation. Stafford had agreed to the money. But in the end, Stafford didn't want to uproot his family and leave L.A. Translation, Stafford didn't want to go to the crappy Giants. Their only option is Cam Ward. Can't do Sam Darnold. He's already failed in New York. Can't do Aaron Rodgers. He was with the Jets last year. Can't do Daniel Jones. You cut him in the middle of the season. That really limits their options. The general manager is desperate. What's he care if he overpays with an extra second-round pick in next year's draft? If this doesn't work, he won't be there next year. Same with the head coach. The owner remembers making the trade for Eli Manning. Talked about it last year when they tried to trade up for Drake May. Offering next year's one probably itself gets it done. My guess is the Giants end up giving the Titans a first this year, number 3, a third this year, and their first next year, and that gets it done. Cam Ward will be the starting quarterback of the New York Giants.
The Tennessee Titans.
Sam Darnold. I think the Titans are keeping this close to the vest. I think the Titans are bringing all the quarterbacks in this upcoming week ahead of free agency just to dot their I's and cross their T's to make sure they're all in on Darnold. But I think they've also kept it very close to the vest. This is what they want to do. Because if you ever listen to Mike Borgonzi talk, all he ever talks about is Kansas City this, Kansas City that. And in Kansas City, they were the worst team in the NFL when John Dorsey and Andy Reid showed up. And they built it from the worst to the best. And that's all Mike Borgonzi knows. And while when you think of what Kansas City's done to become great, you think of Mahomes. He thinks of the early years, the really tough years, the trying times. And he thinks of Alex Smith. And that's what Sam Darnold is to them, is it's Alex Smith. They trade the pick to the Giants. They move back to number 3. I wouldn't rule out moving back a second time and loading up around Sam Darnold. I believe Sam Darnold will be the Tennessee Titans quarterback. So there's a QB carousel. Cleveland goes with Rodgers. The Jets go with Tyrod Taylor. The Raiders with Daniel Jones and Shedeur Sanders. The Steelers with Russell Wilson, and they'll draft Jackson Dart. The Colts go with Anthony Richardson, but Justin Fields will compete with him. J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. Cam Ward at number 1 with a trade up to the Giants. And Sam Darnold at number 8 for the Titans. And that's our second QB carousel. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Boy, I hope you were watching basketball Saturday. We got to hit on that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
Less than a second difference between the shot clock and game clock. They can get the last shot. Are they going to bring Sears to the ball?
Watch the offensive rebound. Watch the offensive rebound. I'm telling you, it's always a dangerous play.
Yep. Philon wants to do it himself. Meshack. In possession arrow, Alabama with 2.4 to go on the shot clock. 2.6 in the game. He gives them a little bit more room. He can even step back and one more step if he wanted to.
Set a screen for.
There goes Sears to the corner. 5-second violation against Alabama. It's Tennessee basketball. Tennessee covered up everything. Ziegler will inbounds, and here we go. Well, they turned down Gainey. Now Meshack's got to go. He will fire. He wins it! Watch out, Meshack wins it!
Meshack was a star of stars in the last 10 minutes of this game. Meshack made big play defensively, big play after big play. Wow.
Dickie V. So I could not believe Tennessee found a way to win that game on Saturday. Then Vanderbilt came on playing Missouri at home, and Missouri was ahead for pretty much the entire game. And I turned off the Vandy Missouri game because Missouri had like a 4-point lead with about 30 seconds left. And I just figured, let's tune it to Louisville, who was in a similar game with Pittsburgh. They ended up winning. So I put on the Louisville game. Then I go out to dinner. Then I come back and I saw Vandy. I said, I look at Twitter and everyone's talking about Memorial Magic this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait a minute. What? Vandy won? So congratulations to Tennessee. Because that win at home against Alabama is the kind of game that can get you propelled up to the one line. We know the SEC tournament does not mean that much traditionally when it comes towards the rankings for the tournament. Now, there are so many good SEC teams that maybe a team like Tennessee can win 3 quality games in Nashville and get themselves onto the one line or something. But that was a big one. And a massive choke job by Alabama. I mean, when you've got the ball with 17 seconds left, and there's 17 seconds left in a tie game, and 17 seconds left on the shot clock, the other team should never even touch the ball. And you've got the possession arrow. But one texter into the text line, I'm glad they brought this up, said, you say that Jared says the Vols never beat anybody, but when they do, he pivots and says, let's wait till March. They might not make a Final Four, but stay consistent with your arguments or just be honest with the listeners. I think Thompson Bowling Arena is the hardest place in the country to play. And every year, Tennessee wins a game just like that game. Every single year, Tennessee wins that kind of game at home. Then they go on the road. In the SEC tournament in Nashville, neutral site. And then, of course, the NCAA tournament. I hate to say it, but at this point with Tennessee basketball, aren't we over this has been a great regular season. It's all about what they do in the tournament. Last year, they made it to the Elite Eight. I thought got screwed by the refs. But last year, they made it to the Elite Eight. This year, let's see. Can they win the national title? Can they get to the Final Four? I think they're kind of a superstar away. Like if they had Dalton Connect, I think they would, but I can't go that far. But I got to give them credit. It was a great win. And then for Vandy, I'll tell you, again, I was ready to throw in the towel on the game the other night because I was going to switch to another game. It looked like Vandy had done the best they could against Missouri, and they found a way to win. And they went into Saturday, according to Joe Lunardi, as a 90% bubble team. Meaning everybody thought, hey, they're probably going to make it anyways. You beat a top 15 team at home like they did in Missouri, and to me, you're a lock. According to the latest bracketology, Vanderbilt, and they continue to move up the depth chart, is now a 9 seed. According to Joe Lunardi, if you're a 9 seed at this stage in the game, you're in. By the way, here's what's crazy. This is the difference a year makes. UConn, the 2-time defending champions, according to Lunardi, they're also a 9 seed. So Vandy has been completely irrelevant for the last 7 years. They're a 9 seed. UConn, back-to-back champions, they're a 9 seed. That's it for us. The Commodore Hour's next. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow, too.